Story 1. This story is titled, My Brother Stalked My Wife for Months and My Mom Helped Him. When we moved away, he broke into our house to take her. Hi everyone, before we dive in, a quick favor. If you enjoy content like this, please hit the subscribe button. It's free, supports the channel, and makes sure you never miss out on amazing videos. Alright, let's get started. I've been holding this in for a long time, and I feel like if I don't let it out, I'm gonna explode. My wife, Emily, 29 female, and I, 30 male, have been married for just over a year now. We met on a dating app, of all places, and honestly, I never thought something real would come out of it, but we hit it off immediately. She was smart, kind, funny, and just easy to talk to. It didn't take long for me to realize she was the one. We dated for 9 months before I proposed, and 3 months after that, we tied the knot. Yeah, it was fast. Some people thought we were rushing it, but I don't regret it for a second. Emily's the best thing that ever happened to me. She's a high school art teacher, super talented and creative. She's been through a lot in her life, though. Her parents died in a car accident when she was 20, so she's been on her own ever since. That kind of independence and resilience really drew me to her. She's the type of person who doesn't let life's challenges break her. She just keeps going, no matter how hard it gets. I admired that about her from the start. As for me, my life hasn't exactly been a walk in the park either. My family is complicated, to put it lightly. My mom, Janet, 54 female, raised me. My older sister, Chloe, 32 female, and my younger brother, Liam, 28 male, all on her own after my dad abandoned us when I was 10. He didn't die or anything noble like that. He literally just left. One day, he said he had a business opportunity out of state, packed a bag, and walked out the door. That was the last we ever saw or heard from him. Mom tried to put on a brave face, but I think it broke her. And when she broke, she leaned hard on Liam. Liam was 8 at the time, and Mom treated him like a fragile little prince who needed constant care. She used to say, "He's too young to understand why his dad left. He needs more attention." And that more attention never stopped. Chloe and I were left to fend for ourselves. But Liam? Oh, he got everything handed to him. If he wanted something, Mom would find a way to make it happen. The newest game console, the best sneakers, you name it, Liam got it. Meanwhile, I was working part-time by the time I turned 15 just to buy basic school supplies. Chloe and I used to joke about it, calling Liam the golden boy. But the truth was, it wasn't funny. It was frustrating. Liam grew up spoiled and entitled, and Mom only made it worse. She babied him through everything. When he dropped out of community college after one semester because he said it wasn't his thing, Mom didn't even bat an eye. She just shrugged and handed him the family laundromat to manage. And by manage, I mean he barely showed up while Mom ran the business herself. Meanwhile, I worked my ass off to get where I am today. I put myself through college with scholarships and part-time jobs, got a degree in software development, and landed a solid job at a tech company. You'd think Mom would be proud of me for that, right? Nope. To her, I just got lucky with computers or whatever. Liam, on the other hand, was the real success in her eyes because he was running a business. Yeah, okay. Despite all that, I still tried to maintain a decent relationship with my family. It wasn't easy, but I figured they were still my family at the end of the day. When Emily and I got married, she suggested staying close to them. She thought it would be good for us to have a support system nearby, especially since she didn't have any family of her own. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but I went along with it because it meant a lot to her. We bought a little house a few minutes away from Mom's place. At first, I thought maybe it wouldn't be so bad. Mom seemed to really like Emily. She kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a sweet, well-mannered wife. Chloe was also great. She's always been the normal one in the family. But Liam? Liam was another story. Liam had this way of making everything about him. If Emily complimented something about the laundromat, like the cafe Mom had set up in the corner, Liam would act like it was his idea, even though everyone knew Mom was the one keeping the place afloat. Mom, of course, encouraged all of this. She'd say things like, "Liam just loves spending time with you two. It's nice to see him getting along with your wife." Anyway, things seemed fine for a while. Emily and I were settling into married life, and I was adjusting to having my family so close. I thought I had everything under control. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when it comes to my family, things are never as simple as they seem. Looking back now, I feel like I should have caught on sooner. At first, it seemed harmless. Liam was being overly friendly to Emily, but I figured he was just trying to bond with her since she was new to the family. He'd show up at our place randomly with coffee or snacks, saying he just happened to be nearby. Or he'd bring over a tool he thought we might need for the house, like a wrench or a screwdriver, even if we didn't ask for help. He even bought her an expensive necklace once. It was a little much, but I brushed it off. I mean, he was my brother. Why would I suspect anything weird? Emily didn't say much about it either, at least not at first. She'd smile and thank him whenever he brought something, but I could tell she wasn't entirely comfortable. She's polite to a fault, always worried about offending people, so I figured she was just being nice. Honestly, I thought Liam was just socially awkward and trying too hard to be helpful. I even joked with her once that Liam probably needed to learn how to take a hint. The thing is, Liam wasn't just stopping by every now and then. He was doing it a lot, like multiple times a week. At one point, I remember joking to Emily, "We might as well give him a spare key at this rate." She laughed, but there was something in her eyes that didn't sit right with me. I shrugged it off because, again, I thought I was overthinking things. Then came Liam's birthday dinner. Mom made a huge deal out of it, like she always does for him. She decorated the house with balloons, baked his favorite cake, and even made a bunch of dishes she knew he liked. It was a typical Liam is the center of the universe event, which was nothing new for our family. Emily and I went because, well, we couldn't not go. Plus, I thought it might be nice to have a normal family gathering for once. The dinner started out fine. We sat around the table, everyone chatting about random stuff. Liam was in his usual smug mood, cracking jokes and making sure the conversation revolved around him. At one point, Mom started talking about how special Liam was and how he just needed the right person in his life to help him settle down. Then she turned to Emily and said, "Someone like you, sweetie, you'd be perfect for him." I froze. Emily looked completely uncomfortable, but before she could respond, Liam chimed in with a grin and said, "Yeah, Emily, you and I would have been perfect together. Too bad Eric got to you first." Everyone laughed like it was just a harmless joke, but I felt my stomach twist. I forced a laugh, trying to play it cool, but inside, I was pissed. Who says something like that to their brother's wife? I wanted to call him out right then and there, but I didn't want to ruin the birthday. I figured I'd talk to him about it later. On the drive home, Emily was quiet. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just nodded and said she was tired. I didn't push her, but I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head. The way Liam looked at her when he made that comment, it wasn't just a joke. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on. A few days later, Emily finally opened up. She waited until we were sitting on the couch after dinner, just the two of us. She started by saying she didn't want to cause any drama, but she felt like I needed to know what was going on. That's when she told me about the way Liam had been acting around her. Apparently, it wasn't just the frequent visits or the random gifts. He was finding excuses to get closer to her, standing too close, brushing against her arm, even trying to hold her hand once when he was thanking her for something. He made comments that were way too personal, like telling her she had the most beautiful eyes, or that she deserved better than someone who worked so much, clearly referring to me. She said she'd been trying to brush it off, but after the birthday dinner, it all started to feel too much. She didn't know how to handle it anymore. I asked Emily why she hadn't told me earlier, and she said she didn't want to create tension in the family. She knew how Mom always sided with Liam and didn't want to make things worse. Plus, she said she wasn't sure if I'd take it seriously. That part stung. The fact that she doubted whether I'd have her back hurt more than anything Liam had done. I reassured her that I believed her completely and that I wasn't going to let this slide. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything she told me, along with all the little moments I'd ignored or dismissed. Liam showing up uninvited, finding excuses to talk to Emily, going out of his way to do things for her. It was all adding up now. This wasn't just Liam being friendly or awkward. This was something else entirely. The next day, I started paying closer attention. I didn't say anything to Liam right away because I wanted to see how he acted when he didn't think I was watching. Sure enough, he showed up at our house that afternoon with some random excuse about needing to borrow a tool. He barely acknowledged me and went straight to Emily, handing her a coffee and saying, "I figured you could use a pick-me-up." She looked uncomfortable, but she thanked him politely. I clenched my jaw, trying not to lose it right there. After he left, I told Emily I was going to talk to him. She asked me not to, at least not yet. She said she didn't want to escalate things until we had a better plan. I agreed, but it wasn't easy. Every time I saw Liam after that, I wanted to punch him in the face. I hated the way he acted like everything was normal, like he wasn't making my wife uncomfortable every chance he got. At this point, I knew things couldn't keep going like this. Something had to give. But after a week of watching him pull the same stunts, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I decided to confront him. I called him over to my house, making it sound like I needed help with something. When he showed up, I wasted no time. I told him I knew about the way he'd been acting around Emily, standing too close, making weird comments, trying to get her alone. At first, he just stared at me, like he couldn't believe I'd actually called him out. Then he laughed, full-on laughed, like I just told the funniest joke in the world. "You're being paranoid, man," he said, shaking his head. "Emily's like a sister to me. I'd never do anything weird. You're just jealous because I get along with her better than you do. That last part hit a nerve, but I held my ground. I told him to knock it off, that his behavior was making Emily uncomfortable, and if he didn't stop, we were going to have a serious problem. He shrugged, said I was blowing things out of proportion, and left without another word. After that, I felt even worse. Liam didn't take me seriously at all. If anything, he probably thought it was funny that I was upset. I told Emily about the conversation, and while she appreciated me standing up for her, she wasn't surprised by his reaction. He's not going to change, she said. And unfortunately, she was right. After that confrontation with Liam, I knew things had to change. I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. And honestly, the way he laughed it off made my blood boil. I'd been holding back, trying to keep things peaceful, but at that point, I was done. I knew we couldn't keep living so close to him and Mom. Emily deserved better than feeling trapped in her own home, and I couldn't keep putting her in situations where she had to deal with Liam's nonsense. That's when the idea of moving came up. The timing was almost eerie. Just as all this was going down, I got a job offer in Kansas City. It wasn't something I'd been actively looking for, but an old college buddy who works at the company had mentioned my name to his boss. A week later, I got the call. They wanted someone with my skill set and were offering a decent bump in pay. At first, I wasn't sure if I wanted to uproot everything, but after that birthday dinner and Liam's increasingly creepy behavior, it felt like a sign. Emily and I talked about it one night. I told her about the offer and how it would mean moving out of state. She immediately looked relieved. "Do you think we can just leave like that?" she asked, her voice a mix of hope and hesitation. I knew what she meant. Mom wasn't exactly going to take the news well. And Liam, well, I didn't even want to imagine his reaction. But I told her, "We don't owe them anything, Em. We need to do what's best for us." We spent the next few weeks planning the move. I told work I was accepting the offer, gave my notice at my old job, and started house hunting in Kansas City. Emily was amazing through all of it. She scoured listings, set up virtual tours, and even packed most of our stuff while I handled the work logistics. We didn't tell anyone except Chloe. She'd always been the supportive one in the family, and I trusted her not to spill the beans. When I told Mom we were moving, she acted like I'd just told her the world was ending. "What do you mean you're moving?" she asked, her voice dripping with disbelief. "What about the family? You're going to leave us? What about Liam? He'll be heartbroken." That last part made me roll my eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck. "Mom, we need to do what's right for us," I said firmly. "This is a good opportunity for my career, and it's what Emily and I want." She didn't take it well. She accused me of abandoning the family and said Emily must have been the one pushing me to leave. Typical mom behavior, always blaming someone else when things didn't go her way. I didn't bother arguing with her. There was no point. Once Mom decided something, it was impossible to change her mind. Liam, thankfully, hadn't caught wind of our plans yet. I wanted to keep it that way. The day we left was bittersweet. Chloe came over to help us load the moving truck, and it hit me that I wouldn't be seeing her as often. She hugged me tight and said, "You're doing the right thing. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty about it." Emily hugged her too, thanking her for being so supportive. Chloe promised to keep our address a secret, and I believed her. She'd seen enough of Liam's behavior to know why we needed to leave. The drive to Kansas City was long but surprisingly peaceful. Emily and I talked about all the things we wanted to do once we settled in. Explore the city, find new hobbies, maybe even adopt a dog. For the first time in weeks, Emily seemed genuinely happy. She even joked about decorating the new house with all the art supplies she'd been hoarding. It felt like a fresh start, and I couldn't wait to put all the family drama behind us. We arrived at the new house late in the evening. It wasn't anything fancy, just a cozy two-bedroom in a quiet neighborhood, but it felt like a mansion compared to the stress we'd been living in. The next few days were a blur of unpacking boxes, setting up furniture, and getting to know the area. Emily took the lead on decorating, and I have to say she did an amazing job. By the end of the week, it actually felt like home. Emily started to relax too. She wasn't jumping at every little noise anymore, and she even started sleeping better. One night, as we were sitting on the couch watching a movie, she leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "I feel safe here." Those words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't realized just how much she'd been holding in until that moment. I wrapped my arm around her and promised her that no one would take this piece away from us. But as much as I tried to focus on our new life, I couldn't completely shake the nagging feeling in the back of my mind. Liam. I hadn't told him we were moving, and I hadn't heard from him since we left. Part of me was relieved, but another part of me wondered how long that would last. Mom hadn't called either, which was unusual. I figured she was still stewing about our betrayal. Emily and I agreed not to let it bother us, though. We were determined to make this move work and build a life for ourselves, away from the toxic family dynamics that had been dragging us down. For now, at least, it feels like we are in control, and that's enough for now. I'll update you when Liam finds out about our moving, or if anything comes up. Update 1. Hey everyone. It's been crazy and I figured it was time for an update. I wish I could say everything's been smooth sailing since our move to Kansas City, but unfortunately that's not the case. Things have taken a turn, and I'm struggling to wrap my head around just how far this has gone. So, we've been here for a few weeks, and for the most part, it felt like a fresh start. I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd finally left all that drama behind. Boy, was I wrong. It started a few days ago when Emily noticed someone outside. She was in the kitchen unpacking some dishes when she saw Liam pacing in front of our house. At first, she thought maybe it was just someone who looked like him. It didn't make sense for him to know where we lived. But then he rang the doorbell. Over and over. He had a bouquet of roses in his hand, and he was calling out, "Emily, I just want to talk." When she told me, I couldn't believe it. I mean, how did he even find us? We didn't tell him or Mom where we moved. The only person who knew was Chloe, and I trusted her completely. But there he was, standing outside our house like some kind of creepy stalker. I told Emily to stay put and not open the door while I called the police. By the time they arrived, Liam was gone. They said there wasn't much they could do unless he came back or made a direct threat, which was frustrating but not surprising. Later that night, I called Chloe to figure out how the hell Liam had found us. At first, she was confused, swearing up and down that she hadn't told anyone. But as we kept talking, she hesitated. Then she broke down and told me the truth. Liam had stolen a copy of our house key from her while helping us pack. He must have found our address on a piece of mail or one of the moving boxes and decided to keep it to himself. Chloe was absolutely mortified. She apologized over and over, saying she didn't realize what he'd done until now. She felt guilty for not keeping a closer eye on him, but honestly, I couldn't blame her. This was entirely on Liam. He crossed a line and I was furious. But Chloe didn't stop there. She also told me some other things that left me sick to my stomach. Apparently, Liam's obsession with Emily ran even deeper than I thought. He'd been secretly taking photos of her during family gatherings, some of which were downright creepy. Chloe said she'd seen pictures of Emily at our old house, sitting on the couch or reading a book, completely unaware that Liam was taking them. Worse, he'd been recording her voice during conversations and stitching together long audio files that he'd listened to on repeat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't just harmless flirting or boundary pushing anymore. This was full-blown stalking. How had I let it get this far? I knew Liam had issues, but I never imagined he was capable of something like this. I kept replaying all the times I brushed off his behavior, convincing myself it wasn't a big deal. But now, with everything Chloe had told me, it was clear that Liam was dangerous. I couldn't afford to let my guard down anymore. Emily was shaken when I told her what Chloe said, but she wasn't surprised. I had a feeling there was more to it, she admitted. The way he looked at me, the things he said, it always felt off. She thanked me for taking her seriously and standing up for her. But I could tell this whole thing was wearing on her. She started jumping at every little noise, checking the locks on the doors multiple times before bed. It broke my heart to see her like that. The next day, we found more proof that Liam had been watching us. Emily was cleaning out the mailbox when she found a letter addressed to her in Liam's handwriting. It was rambling and incoherent, filled with phrases like, "You're the only one who understands me," and "I'll wait forever if I have to." It was creepy as hell, and it confirmed what I already knew. Liam wasn't going to leave us alone. I brought the letter to the police, but again, they said their hands were tied unless Liam made a direct threat or showed up again. They suggested filing for a restraining order, which we're looking into, but it's a process. In the meantime, we've installed security cameras around the house, and I've started documenting everything. Every letter, every text, every incident. I want to make sure we have as much evidence as possible if this escalates further. Mom, of course, isn't helping. When I told her what Liam had done, she immediately went into defense mode. "He's just upset," she said. "You shouldn't have moved away without telling him. He doesn't know how to handle it." She even had the nerve to blame Emily, saying, if she hadn't been so nice to him, he wouldn't have gotten the wrong idea. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Nice? Emily was polite because she didn't want to cause drama, and now Mom was using that as an excuse for Liam's behavior? I told her she needed to wake up and realize that Liam wasn't just being sensitive, he was stalking my wife. Mom hung up on me after that and hasn't called back since. Emily and I are trying to stay strong, but it's hard. She's taken down all her social media accounts, and she barely goes anywhere alone. I've started working from home more often because I don't want to leave her by herself. Every time I leave the house, I find myself looking over my shoulder, half expecting to see Liam lurking nearby. It's exhausting, and it feels like no matter how far we go, we can't escape him. I don't know what's going to happen next, but one thing is clear. Liam isn't just some overgrown man-child with a crush. He's dangerous, and I'll do whatever it takes to protect Emily from him. This isn't just family drama anymore. It's a safety issue. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. For now, we're just focusing on staying safe and trying to figure out our next steps. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. I didn't think things could get worse, but Liam has proven me wrong yet again. At this point, it feels like we're living in some kind of bad movie, except there's no off button. I'm honestly exhausted, and Emily is barely holding it together. I just need to get this all out. So here we go. The first incident happened about a week after my last post. Emily had started going back to her usual routine, trying to act like everything was normal. She didn't want to feel like a prisoner in her own home, which I completely understood. One morning, she went to her favorite art supply store. It's a little mom and pop shop about 15 minutes away, and she loves going there to browse and get inspired. She didn't notice anything unusual at first, but as she was leaving, she saw Liam's car parked across the street. At first, she thought maybe she was imagining things. She told herself it could have been someone with a similar car, but when she got into her car and started driving, he followed her. He didn't try to hide it either. He stayed just a few car lengths behind her the entire way home. She called me while she was driving, her voice shaking, and said, "I think he's following me." I told her to stay calm, drive straight home, and I'd meet her in the driveway. When she pulled in, Liam's car was nowhere in sight. He must have turned off before she got to the house, but the damage was already done. Emily was in tears, shaking so badly she could barely get out of the car. I held her for what felt like forever before helping her inside. She kept saying, "I shouldn't have gone out. I should have stayed home." I tried to tell her this wasn't her fault, that Liam was the one in the wrong, but she wasn't hearing it. We reported the incident to the police, but again, there wasn't much they could do without concrete proof that he was stalking her. They suggested we keep a log of everything and update them if it happened again. I asked about getting a GPS tracker for Emily's car, just in case we needed to prove he was following her. The officer said it was a good idea, so we ordered one that same day. The next incident was even scarier. Emily had started going to a nearby park in the mornings to clear her head and get some fresh air. She figured it was safe because it was always busy with joggers, dog walkers, and families. One morning, she went to sit by the pond, sketching in her notebook, when she heard someone call her name. She looked up, and there he was, Liam, sitting on a bench not far from her, watching her like he'd been there the whole time. Emily panicked. She grabbed her stuff and started walking back to her car, but Liam followed her. He didn't say anything, just kept walking a few steps behind her. When she got to her car, she locked the doors and drove off. He didn't try to stop her, but she said the look on his face was enough to haunt her for days. She said he looked calm, like he wasn't even doing anything wrong, like it was totally normal for him to be there. When she got home and told me, I was livid. I couldn't believe he'd found her at the park. It was like he was keeping tabs on her every move. I went straight to the police station and demanded to know why they couldn't do more. They said they understood my frustration, but reiterated that we needed more evidence to build a stronger case for harassment or stalking. I showed them the GPS tracker data from the first incident and told them about the park. They said it helped, but we still needed more. At this point, Emily was too scared to leave the house alone. She canceled her plans to go back to work, telling her boss she needed more time off. Her boss was incredibly understanding and even offered to have someone screen her mail and phone calls at work if she decided to come back. Emily was grateful, but I could tell it wasn't enough to ease her anxiety. She started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night crying or gasping for air. It's like Liam was everywhere, even when he wasn't physically there. One night, I caught her sitting on the floor in the hallway, just staring at the front door. I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "I'm just making sure it's locked." It broke my heart to see her like this. She was always so strong, so independent, and now she was scared to be in her own home. I promised her I'd do whatever it took to keep her safe, but honestly, I was scared too. Not for myself, but for her. I didn't know what Liam was capable of anymore. We decided to make some changes around the house to help Emily feel safer. We got better locks for all the doors and windows, added motion sensor lights outside, and even installed a doorbell camera that alerts us anytime someone comes to the front door. I also set up a system where she could press a button on her phone to trigger an alarm if she ever felt unsafe. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than nothing. Mom, of course, wasn't helping. She called me a few days after the park incident to tell me I was overreacting. She said Liam was just trying to make things right, and that I was blowing things out of proportion. I told her to stay out of it, that she was enabling him and making things worse. She got defensive, saying, "He's my son. I can't just turn my back on him." I wanted to scream at her, but I hung up instead. I couldn't deal with her excuses anymore. Right now, we're just trying to take it one day at a time. Emily has started therapy to help with her anxiety, and I'm doing my best to be there for her. It's exhausting, but I know we'll get through this. Liam might think he can control us, but he's wrong. We're not going to let him win. I'll update again if anything else happens. Thanks to everyone who's been following this and offering advice. It means more than you know. Update 3. I'm back with another update, and I honestly don't even know where to start. Everything feels like a nightmare I can't wake up from. I thought things were bad before, but what happened recently took everything to another level. I'm still trying to process it all, so bear with me. It started out like any other evening. We had dinner, watched a little TV, and went to bed around 10. As always, we double-checked the locks and made sure the alarm system was armed. I don't know why, but I felt uneasy as we were getting ready for bed. I even joked to Emily, maybe I'm becoming paranoid, because I kept glancing at the front door. She just gave me a small smile and said, better paranoid than careless. I don't know how long we'd been asleep when it happened. I woke up to Emily screaming, a sound that made my blood run cold. I shot up in bed, disoriented, trying to figure out what was going on. That's when I saw him, Liam. He was sitting in a chair he must have dragged in from the kitchen, positioned right next to Emily's side of the bed. He was holding her hand, whispering something I couldn't make out. The look on her face was pure terror. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. How the hell did he get in? The doors were locked, the windows were shut, everything was secure. But there he was, as if none of that mattered. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I jumped out of bed and lunged at him, knocking the chair over and sending him sprawling to the floor. He tried to fight back, but I wasn't holding back this time. I pinned him down and shouted for Emily to call 911. As I held him there, he kept muttering the same thing over and over. She belongs with me. You don't deserve her. His voice was calm, almost robotic, like he really believed what he was saying. It was one of the creepiest moments of my life. I don't know how long it took for the police to arrive. Probably only a few minutes, but it felt like an eternity. When they finally showed up, they pulled Liam off the floor, handcuffed him, and started asking questions. That's when we learned how he got in. He'd been watching us for weeks, figuring out our routines and waiting for the perfect time. He managed to find a way to cut us from electricity before he got in, so the alarms didn't go on. The police also found a duffel bag he'd brought with him. Inside were duct tape, zip ties, a bottle of chloroform, and, this is the part that still makes me sick, a wedding ring. He'd also taken a framed photo of Emily from our living room and had it in the bag like some kind of trophy. The whole thing was beyond disturbing. As they were taking him away, Liam looked me dead in the eye and said, "This isn't over." I don't know if it was meant to scare me or if he actually believed he'd get another chance, but it sent a chill down my spine. Emily, meanwhile, was sitting on the floor, shaking and crying. I've never seen her so scared. It broke my heart. The next few hours were a blur of police reports, questions, and trying to comfort Emily. She kept asking, how did it get this far? How could he do this? And honestly, I didn't have any answers. I felt like I'd failed her, like I should have done more to protect her. The police assured us that Liam would be held without bail due to the nature of the incident, but that wasn't much comfort in the moment. The aftermath has been a lot. Emily hasn't been able to sleep since that night. She flinches at every little noise and keeps saying she feels like he's still watching her, even though we know he's in custody. Her therapist has been trying to help, but this kind of trauma doesn't just go away overnight. She's even talked about wanting to move again because she can't stand the thought of staying in this house after what happened. I don't blame her. Every time I walk into the bedroom, I see that chair lying on the floor and think about how close we came to something far worse. I've also had to deal with Mom, who, unsurprisingly, is in full denial mode. When I called to tell her what happened, she actually tried to defend Liam. He's not a bad person, she said. He's just confused and needs help. Confused? The guy broke into my house in the middle of the night with duct tape and chloroform. I told her she needed to wake up and realize that Liam wasn't just her baby boy anymore. He was dangerous. She got upset and accused me of trying to ruin his life. At that point, I hung up. I can't keep wasting my energy on her excuses. We're pressing charges, of course. The police seem to be taking this seriously, especially with all the evidence they found in Liam's bag. They've assured us that he'll face significant jail time, but the thought of him being out there someday still terrifies me. I've also hired a lawyer who specializes in cases like this to make sure everything is handled properly. I want to make sure Liam pays for what he's done, not just to us, but to Emily, specifically. She didn't deserve any of this. Right now, Emily has started sleeping in the guest room because she can't bring herself to go back into the bedroom. I've been sleeping on the couch nearby so she doesn't feel alone. We're looking into moving again, even though the thought of packing everything up and starting over is exhausting. But if it helps Emily feel safe, I'll do it without hesitation. I still can't believe this is my life. A year ago, I was just a guy who married the love of his life and wanted to build a future together. Now I'm dealing with restraining orders, police reports, and a brother who's turned into a full-blown stalker. It's surreal, and not in a good way. Anyway, I'll leave it here for now. Thanks to everyone who's been following this and offering support. It's been a lifeline during all of this. I'll update again once we know more about the charges and what's going to happen next. For now, we're just focusing on staying safe and getting through each day. Issue Update 4. Hey everyone, this will probably be my last update. A lot has happened, and honestly, we just want to put this chapter behind us and move on with our lives. I can't thank you all enough for the advice and support. It's meant more than I can say. Liam's case went to court a few months after the break-in. He was charged with stalking, breaking and entering, and attempted kidnapping. The evidence was overwhelming, especially with the duffel bag, his recordings of Emily, and the creepy journal entries they found in his house. He pled guilty, and the judge sentenced him to 4 years in prison. Honestly, I wish it was longer, but at least he's out of our lives for now. Mom didn't escape this either. During the investigation, it came out that she'd been feeding Liam information about Emily's routine and encouraging him to win her over. She even knew about his plans. It also came out that Liam had stalked other women before Emily. Mom had paid them off to stay quiet, thinking marriage would fix him. The court saw it differently. She was charged as an accessory and sentenced to 3 years of probation. She's not allowed any contact with us, which is honestly the best part. As for us, we decided to stay in Kansas City, but moved to a new house across town. Emily couldn't handle staying in the old place after everything that happened, and I didn't blame her. She's still dealing with the trauma. She cut her hair short and dyed it, saying she didn't want to look like the person Liam had obsessed over. She also started wearing looser clothes, even though it breaks my heart to see her feel like she has to change herself to feel safe. Therapy is helping, though, and she's slowly starting to regain her confidence. We've cut off all contact with Mom, Liam, and most of the family. Chloe is the only one we still talk to. She's been a rock through all of this and even testified against Mom and Liam in court. The rest of the family? They still think we're overreacting, saying things like, family is family, and Liam needs support, not punishment. Yeah, no thanks. Life isn't perfect, but it's getting better. Emily's back at work part-time, and we're focusing on rebuilding our lives. I've learned a lot through all this. Mainly, that blood doesn't mean you owe anyone your peace or safety. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the one you should keep. Emily and I are building our own version of family now, one built on love and respect, not toxicity and excuses. Thanks again to everyone who's been here through this mess. Your words of encouragement got us through some really dark times. Take care of yourselves, and if you're ever in a similar situation, don't wait to take action. Trust your instincts, protect your peace, and don't be afraid to walk away. Stay safe, everyone. Story 2. My family thought I was too dirty for their fancy Christmas Eve, but not for my minor paychecks, so I cut them off. Hey Reddit, buckle up and get ready for one mother of all clusterfucks. Grab some snacks, you're gonna need those, and settle in for the long haul. I, 29 male, was always the family disappointment. Grew up in this San Francisco neighborhood where my parents were stretching every dollar just to seem like they had money. Dad was some mid-level financial advisor who acted like he was a Wall Street big shot whenever we had company over. Mom worked as an office manager but spent every spare cent on designer knockoffs to impress neighbors who probably didn't even notice or care. Our house was this place they could barely afford, but it was in a good zip code, so they thought that made them hot shit. Behind closed doors? Totally different story. Generic groceries with those black and white labels. Heat kept so low in winter, you could see your breath. Cars held together with duct tape and prayers. Also, they could play, pretend to be something they weren't whenever anyone was watching. Then there was my brother, Ryan, 25 male, the golden child who could do no wrong. The beloved nerd with straight A's, captain of whatever preppy sport was trendy that season, Stanford bound with a future that would finally make my parents actually important, instead of just pretending to be. Ryan knew exactly how to play their game, could talk all that fancy nonsense at dinner parties, knew how to schmooze Dad's work buddies with just the right mix of ambition and ass-kissing. Meanwhile, to them, I was busy being the family screw-up. Got decent grades without trying, but nothing special. Played basketball at the public high school. Spent weekends in the garage taking apart engines while Mom would practically have a stroke if her friends drove by and saw me all greasy in the driveway. James! What will Mrs. McDoodle think if she sees you looking like that? Bruh. As if Mrs. McDoodle gave 2 fucks about what I was doing on a Saturday. Why can't you be more like your brother? Wasn't something they always said out loud, but it hung in the air every damn day. Every disappointed look when I didn't meet their standards. Every comparison where I came up short. Dad would come home from work, see Ryan studying, and give him a pat on the shoulder. Then he'd see me working on some mechanical project and just shake his head like I was assembling pipe bombs instead of fixing a carburetor. Mom was worse in her own way. She'd introduce Ryan to her friends as my son who's heading to Stanford, and then gesture vaguely at me with, and this is James. Not even a mention of what I was good at or interested in. Just existing. An afterthought. Then shit hit the fan senior year when I turned down UC Berkeley. My parents had pulled strings, kissed ass, and called in favors to get me in. Their plan was already set. I'd major in finance or pre-law, join the right frat, meet the right people, and eventually become a respectable carbon copy of every other suit-wearing drone they admired. Instead, I told them I was moving to Arizona to work in mining. And LOL, let me tell you, that drove them insane. Thought my mom was gonna faint right there in the kitchen. Dad's face turned so red I thought his head might actually explode. Mining? Are you out of your mind? Dad practically shouted, slamming his hand down on the counter. Nobody in our circle works with their hands. We've invested everything to give you opportunities. No, you invested everything in trying to make me Ryan 2.0, I shot back. The mining gig actually paid insanely well, more than most college grads would make for years. But of course, that didn't matter to them. Dirty hands meant dirty class status, and that was unforgivable in their world of fake appearances. Ryan, home from Stanford that weekend, just watched the whole blow up with this smug little smile. Later, he cornered me in the kitchen while I was grabbing a soda. You know this rebellious phase is just embarrassing everyone, right? Just go to Berkeley, get the degree, and stop being such a pain in the ass. I remember looking at him and realizing he actually believed the bullshit. He wasn't just playing along. He had fully bought into the importance of appearances, the value of proper careers, the whole status-obsessed worldview our parents had been pushing. When I loaded up my truck to leave, Mom did the whole dramatic crying routine while Dad lectured me one more time about wasting my potential. Ryan didn't even show up. Too busy with some frat party or whatever. He texted me later. Have fun playing in the dirt. Don't come crawling back when you realize you've screwed up. I remember cranking up some Metallica and not looking back as I hit the highway. With every mile marker between me and San Francisco, I could literally feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being measured against their bullshit yardstick. No more pretending to care about the right schools, or the right careers, or the right neighborhoods. I was finally going to do what I knew was right for me, pointing my truck east toward the desert, toward a future I actually wanted, rather than one that would look good at my parents' dinner parties. So, the first couple years in Arizona were brutal. Mining kicks your ass every single day. 12-hour shifts in conditions that would make most college boys quit in the first hour. Dangerous as hell, physically exhausting, and dirty in ways you can't even imagine until you've been there. Breathing in dust, working in tight spaces where the walls could collapse on you any second. Equipment that could take your arm off if you weren't paying attention. My first day, this old-timer named Hank took one look at me. Clean-cut city boy with soft hands and a nervous smile, and just shook his head. Give him 2 weeks, he told the shift supervisor, not even bothering to lower his voice. Those first few months, I'd drag myself back to my crappy little apartment, body aching in places I didn't know could ache, too tired to even shower sometimes. Just fall face first onto the mattress, set my alarm for 4:30 a.m., and do it all again the next day. Blisters turned to calluses. Muscles I never knew I had got stronger. My soft hands hardened up. 3 weeks in, Hank nodded at me in the locker room. Still here, huh? And let me say that nod was worth more than any A+ I'd ever gotten in school. There was something real about the work that felt right. I wasn't pretending to be someone I wasn't. The guys I worked with didn't give a rat's ass about what neighborhood I grew up in or what college I didn't attend. They cared if you worked hard, didn't whine too much, had their backs in tight spots, and could take a joke. For the first time in my life, I was judged by what I actually did, not the image I projected. Honest work, honest judgment. I busted my ass and moved up fast. Started as a basic underground miner, got certified on every piece of equipment I could, worked my way up to shift supervisor in record time, then operations manager by 27. Turned out I had a knack for the logistics and business side. I just couldn't stand learning that stuff from textbooks in some fancy lecture hall with professors who'd never moved from their chair. The supervisor who promoted me, this grizzled guy named Mike, who'd been in the business for 30 years, told me straight up, "You're smart about real stuff that matters down here." Best compliment I ever got. I saved every penny I could, lived in the same crappy little apartment, while guys making half what I did were buying new trucks they couldn't afford and blowing cash every weekend. After 5 years of grinding, I had enough saved to make some moves. Invested in mining equipment, bought into the company, started consulting for other operations in the region. The money got serious. Like, really serious. More than Dad made pushing papers around at his financial firm, that's for sure. But I kept living the same way. Same pickup truck, same worn jeans, same local dive bar on Fridays. Didn't see the point in changing. I liked my life, liked who I'd become. No fancy watch or designer clothes could improve on the feeling of building something real. During those years in Arizona, I'd still visit my family back in San Francisco a few times a year. My parents didn't actually cut me off. They just made sure I understood they viewed my career choice as a temporary phase before I'd come to my senses. Dad would introduce me to his friends with that awkward explanation. This is James. He's working in mining right now, but looking at options. Mom would casually leave college brochures on my bed during visits. Ryan would ask with fake concern if the manual labor was getting too hard on my body yet. I'd just roll my eyes and brush it off. What else could I do? They were still my family, and part of me still wanted their approval. So I'd bite my tongue when Mom would wince at my rough language, or Dad would change the subject whenever I talked about work. I figured eventually they'd get it, that my success would speak for itself. Man, was I wrong about that. But eventually, my success news made its way back to San Francisco. The calls started coming in. First from Mom, all sweet and curious about how I was doing out there in the desert. Then Dad, grudgingly acknowledging that I'd found my footing in my unusual career choice. I kept it civil but distant. Yeah, things are good, I'd tell Mom. Business is expanding. Never giving details about how much I was actually making or what I owned. Water under the bridge, I told myself. Then came their money problems. It started with hints dropped into conversation. Dad mentioned market downturns. Mom talked about possibly scaling back her charity committees. Just casual comments designed to get me to offer help. Your father and I are thinking about renovating the kitchen, but with the market so volatile, Mom would trail off, waiting for me to jump in. Ryan's startup needs a bit of capital to get through this quarter. Dad would mention, like we were discussing the weather. At first, I thought I'd finally get validation from them. I helped without thinking twice, paid for their home renovation, invested in Ryan's tech venture that I knew was doomed from the start, covered the country club dues when Dad's firm had a bad year. I even set up monthly transfers into my parents' account to keep them comfortable, no questions asked. It felt good, in a petty way, to be the one they turned to, the one they needed. These were the same people who thought my career choice was something to be ashamed of, who'd written me off as the family failure. Now they were cashing checks earned by that same shameful career. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I kept my mouth shut about it. What I didn't realize then was that I'd opened a door that would never close. A doorway to endless expectations and being used while still being looked down on. I was good enough to fund their lifestyle, but not good enough to be fully respected by them. Funny how money changes everything and nothing at the same time. But one day, a call from my mother changed everything. I was in my apartment, planning what expensive bottle of whiskey to bring to Christmas Eve like the good son I thought I was. Macallan 18? Blanton's? I was actually hyped about seeing my family because it's been months. My phone lit up with Mom's name and I answered expecting the usual, "What time are you getting here?" convo. Instead, I got hit with the most WTF statement ever. "Hey Mom," I said, keeping it neutral. "James, darling, how are you?" Then she finally got to the point. About Christmas Eve dinner. "We're doing things a bit differently." "Different how?" I asked, already feeling my guard go up. "Well, Ryan's bringing his new girlfriend. She's a Caldwell, you know, of the Boston Caldwells. And her parents will be joining us. And your father's new partners will be there with their wives. It's going to be quite elevated this year." Elevated. Jesus Christ. The way she said it made it sound like they were hosting the royal family instead of just another stuffy dinner with stuffy people. I waited, knowing where this was going. "And with your schedule being so busy with all your projects," she continued, her voice getting that fake concerned tone, "we thought perhaps you'd prefer to skip this one. We can do a separate family gathering after the holidays. Something casual when you're in town next." Translation: You and your blue-collar ass don't fit the image we want to project to Ryan's fancy girlfriend's parents and Dad's business associates. Then she continued, "Listen, honey, it's just that your grandparents will be there too. And you know how they are. And Uncle Roger too, with his new partners at the law firm. We just don't want any scenes. You being so different, you know. Different. That's the word that got me. I was a minor and damn proud of it. Being uninvited from Christmas Eve because I was a minor? That was a whole new level of rejection. I could hear Dad in the background, But of course, he didn't have the spine to get on the phone himself. Classic dad move, letting mom do the dirty work. Are you serious? I asked, my voice dropping an octave. I was angry. Mom kept talking like she was doing me a favor. It's just for the best. We can catch up at New Year's or maybe over the phone. It's just one night. Just one night. Like asking to be treated like an actual member of the family was me being dramatic. Like my dirty minor hands might leave smudges on their perfect holiday. Mom, I'm your son. Why are you doing this? She sighed. You know we love you, but you have to understand how it is. People talk. Your cousin already mentioned how awkward it might be with his Goldman Sachs colleagues there. We don't want drama on Christmas Eve. Translation. Grandpa might make comments about my unfortunate career choice. Uncle Roger might be embarrassed to introduce me as family to his fancy lawyer friends, and my parents cared more about keeping up appearances than including their own kid. My existence was the drama they wanted to avoid. My silence must have been uncomfortable because Mom added, try to understand, okay? We'll save you some leftovers. You can come after that night, though. Leftovers. Like I was some stray dog they'd throw scraps to after the real family finished eating. I hung up before she could respond, my hand actually shaking. 3 years of financially supporting their lifestyle, bailing out Ryan's failed ventures, being their emergency fund, and I still wasn't good enough to sit at their table. My phone buzzed almost immediately with a text from Ryan. Mom says you're being difficult about Christmas Eve. Just go with it this time. The Caldwells are important connections. We'll make it up to you. Don't be a jerk. I didn't bother responding. There was nothing to say. I sat at my desk for a good 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The sheer audacity of it was mind-boggling. It was so perfectly on brand for them, I should have seen it coming. They'd always been experts at making me feel like I wasn't good enough, even when I was literally funding their lifestyle. The irony would be funny if it didn't make me want to punch the wall. The thoughts were eating my head, so I canceled my afternoon meetings and drove out to one of our mining sites. Something about being around the actual work, the heavy machinery, the guys in hard hats actually producing something real, helped clear my head. This was my world now, a world where people valued results over appearances, where your word and your work mattered more than your pedigree. That evening, I called my buddy Mike, needing to vent to someone who'd understand. Mike had been my first friend in Arizona, a fellow miner who'd shown me the ropes when I was green. He'd since moved into engineering at the same company, and we'd stayed close through the years. They did what? Mike practically shouted through the phone after I explained the situation. That's next-level bullshit, man. After everything you've done for them? Apparently, I'm still not polished enough for the fancy Caldwells, I said, trying to laugh it off but knowing I sounded bitter. Screw 'em, Mike said bluntly. Spend Christmas with us. Sarah's cooking enough food for an army anyway, and the kids would lose their minds if Uncle James doesn't show up with his famous fireworks. The casual assumption that I already had a place at their table, that I belonged without question, hit me harder than I expected. You sure? I don't want to crash your family time, I said. Are you kidding me? You are family, dumbass, Mike replied. Besides, Sarah would kick my ass if I didn't drag you over. Just bring those steaks from that fancy butcher you found. Mike and Sarah had been there. My blood relatives hadn't even known those things happened. I'd been trying to buy my family's approval for years, sending them money, solving their problems, all in the hope that eventually they'd see me as worthy. But that approval would never come, because the problem wasn't that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that their entire value system was screwed up. No amount of money would ever change that. Christmas Eve at Mike's was everything a holiday should be. Their house wasn't anything special, but it was warm. The tree was a little crooked, with a mix of store-bought ornaments and handmade ones from their kids. Christmas music played from a speaker that kept cutting out. And you know what? It was perfect. Their kids tackled me the second I walked through the door. Uncle James, did you bring fireworks? Can we do them now? Did you see what Santa brought early? Both talking a mile a minute while trying to drag me in different directions. Sarah welcomed me with a warm hug. Thank God you're here. Mike's been trying to carve the ham and it looks like he's performing surgery on it. Rescue dinner before he ruins it? No pretense, no awkward small talk about the market or property values or who got into what college. Just immediate inclusion, like I'd always been part of the family. Which, in all the ways that actually mattered, I had been for years. Mike's parents were there too, retired and living in a small place in Phoenix. His dad immediately pulled me into a conversation about some new mining equipment he'd read about in a magazine. His mom asked genuine questions about my work, actually listening to the answers. They all were like the family I always wanted. Dinner wasn't served on fancy china. The potatoes had some lumps. The gravy was a little thin. Nobody cared. We talked and laughed and argued about sports teams. The kids kept sneaking their vegetables to the dog when they thought nobody was looking. After dinner, Mike and I escaped to the backyard with drinks to set up the fireworks I'd brought for later. The desert night was cool and clear, stars blazing overhead in a way they never did in San Francisco's foggy skies. "You're quiet tonight," Mike said, opening the box of fireworks. I shrugged. "Just thinking. About your asshole family?" I laughed despite myself. "Something like that." Mike was quiet for a moment, sorting through the fireworks. Then he said, "You know what the problem is, right? You've made it too easy for them to have it both ways. They get to look down their noses at you while dipping into your wallet whenever they want." His words hit home. "You're saying I enabled this." "I'm saying they've never had to choose between their stuck-up image and their financial comfort," Mike replied. "Maybe it's time they did." Something clicked in my mind after what Mike said. Yeah, maybe it is. Later, when I finally headed home around 2 a.m., Sarah packed up enough leftovers to feed me for a week. Mike's mom hugged me and told me I'd better come to their place for New Year's Eve too. The kids made me promise to bring more fireworks next time. Driving back to my place, I realized something important. I'd spent years chasing the approval of people who were never going to give it to me. Meanwhile, I already had everything I needed right here. People who accepted me exactly as I was. Greasy hands, work boots, and all. When I got home that night, 3 missed calls from Mom and a text from Ryan. I ignored them all and slept better than I had in months. The next morning, still riding the clarity I'd found at Mike's, I pulled up my banking app and took a hard look at all the automatic transfers I had set up. The mortgage supplement for my parents' overpriced house they could barely afford. The quarterly investment into Ryan's latest doomed startup. The country club dues they stretched to pay. The credit card payments that kept their facade intact. It was insane when I actually looked at the numbers. Grands after grands just flowing out each month to support their lifestyle, while they thought I might embarrass them in front of the hoity-toity Caldwells. Without hesitation, I canceled every single transfer and autopay. Then I called my financial advisor. "I need you to stop the disbursements to RK Ventures," I said, referring to Ryan's company, where my money disappeared into a black hole. I felt lighter than I had in years. Like I'd finally put down a weight I'd been carrying around for too long. I knew there would be drama when they discovered the money faucet had been turned off, but I didn't give a fuck anymore. It was exactly 3 days before all hell broke loose. The amount of time it took for Mom's credit card to be declined during some shopping spree. I was in a meeting about expanding one of our sites when my phone started blowing up. I ignored it until we wrapped, then checked to find 6 missed calls from Dad, 3 from Mom, and about a dozen texts from Ryan, each one more panicky than the last. Dad called first, barely containing his rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Your mother was humiliated today." Of course that was his concern. Not, "Hey, is everything okay with you?" Or, "Did something happen?" Nope, straight to how Mom was embarrassed in front of some cashier. "Yeah, about that. I decided to stop enabling," I replied. "Since I'm not good enough for Christmas dinner, I figure my money isn't good enough for your expenses." "This is childish," he snapped. "You can't just cut us off without warning because your feelings are hurt about one dinner invitation." "It's not about the dinner," I said, my voice quiet. "It's about years of being treated like I'm something to be ashamed of while you're happy to take my money. I'm done." I hung up before he could respond, but my phone immediately lit up with Ryan calling. I answered, ready to get it all over with at once. "What the actual fuck is wrong with you? Do you have any idea what you've done? Forced you to run a real business instead of a money pit?" I suggested. "You think you're so much better than us now because you got lucky playing in the dirt?" Ryan sneered. "You're still the same loser who couldn't cut it in the real world. You think anyone respects what you do? You think your dirt money impresses anyone who matters?" There it was. The real face. The contempt in his voice was almost a relief. At least he was being honest for once. "You ungrateful piece of shit," Ryan continued, raising his voice. "After everything this family did for you?" I cut him off with a laugh. "What exactly did you do for me, Ryan? Besides look down on me my entire life? Besides make sure I knew I was the family disappointment? Besides take my money while mocking how I earned it? You're making a huge mistake," Ryan warned. "You think you can just walk away from family?" "Watch me," I said, and hung up. Mom's call came next, her voice tearful and accusatory. I cut through her guilt trip quickly. "I've supported you financially for years, while you continue to treat me like dirt. Well, it's over. Figure out your own finances for once." "We'll lose everything," she said, panic rising in her voice. "Then you'll lose everything," I replied. "Maybe then you'll figure out what actually matters." I blocked all their numbers after that. For the first week, I felt like shit, second-guessing myself, wondering if I was overreacting. But then came a weird sense of freedom. I'd been carrying their expectations and judgments for so long that their absence felt like putting down a heavy weight I hadn't realized I was bearing. The week after I cut them off, I buried myself in work. We were expanding operations to a new site, which meant endless meetings with environmental consultants, government officials, equipment suppliers. One night, I was working late at the office when Mike stopped by my door. "You look like crap," he said bluntly. "Thanks, bud. Just what I needed to hear." He closed the door and sat down across from me. I told him what happened and how I kind of feel like an asshole. Mike nodded. "Can I give you some advice? From someone who had to cut off his own brother a few years back? The guilt? That's normal. They programmed that into you from day one. It's how they've always controlled you. But ask yourself this. If a friend treated you the way they do, would you keep that friend? I didn't even have to think about it. Hell no. So why is it okay when it's family?" He let that hang in the air between us. "Look," he continued, "family should be held to a higher standard, not a lower one. They're supposed to have your back more than anyone else, not use you while treating you like you're somehow less than them." He was right, and we both knew it. When he left, I sat there thinking about what he'd said. That night, I finally deleted all the voicemails from my family without listening to them. Whatever they had to say, whatever guilt trips or accusations or manipulations they were trying, I didn't need to hear them. I already knew the truth. I deserved better than what they were offering. With my family in the rearview mirror, I went into overdrive. All that energy I'd wasted dealing with their drama and demands, I redirected it straight into my business. It's amazing how much more you can accomplish when you're not constantly managing other people's bullshit. First thing I did was buy a controlling stake in the mining operation, where I'd started as a grunt worker. The owner was looking to retire anyway, and I'd spent years learning every aspect of the business. The negotiations were intense. 3 weeks of late nights poring over financials, operational reports, equipment valuations. But when the dust settled, I owned 51% of the company that had given me my start. The day after we closed the deal, I called an all-hands meeting. Guys were nervous. New ownership usually means layoffs or big changes. I kept it simple. You know me. I started right where many of you are now. I'm not some corporate raider looking to strip this place and sell it off. I want to build something better, something that lasts. And I need all of you to do it. The relief in the room was palpable. My first major decision was investing in new safety equipment that cut workplace injuries by nearly half within 6 months. Safety gear isn't cheap, but neither are accidents. Every injury we prevented meant a worker didn't lose income, a family didn't suffer, and production didn't get interrupted. It was the right thing to do morally and financially. My personal life got simpler too. I bought a decent ranch house outside Tucson with enough land for a proper workshop where I could tear apart engines on the weekend. My days fell into a rhythm that felt right. Wake up at 6 a.m. and work till the job's done. Weekends meant off-roading, tinkering with my truck, or grilling with friends. 6 months after cutting ties, production at our main site was up 22%. We secured a major contract with a tech manufacturer that needed specific minerals for their new line of products. This wasn't just a one-off deal, it was a 5-year agreement that gave us stability and room to grow. To celebrate, I took my whole management team out to dinner. "To the best damn mining team in the Southwest," I said. The guys cheered. These were my people. Later that night, as I was heading to my truck, Mike caught up with me in the parking lot. "Almost forgot to ask you," he said, slapping my shoulder. "Sarah's cousin Emma is coming to stay with us for a few weeks. She just took a job. Sarah's planning a cookout this weekend to welcome her. You should come." "She trying to set me up again?" I asked skeptically, remembering the last casual gathering that turned out to be an obvious matchmaking attempt with Sarah's incredibly boring coworker. Mike laughed. "Maybe, but Emma's different. Sarah says she's brilliant, but can't stand academic bullshit artists. Sounds like your type." I rolled my eyes but agreed to come. Good food, good company, and if Sarah's cousin was terrible, I'd just hang out with the kids and the dog like I usually did at these things. Turned out Emma was the real deal. No pretension. Showed up to the cookout in worn jeans and hiking boots, hair pulled back in a ponytail, more interested in the rock formations on Mike's property than making small talk about the weather. Within minutes of meeting, we were deep in conversation about extraction techniques and environmental mitigation. "So you're the mining guru," she said, when Sarah introduced us, giving me a firm handshake. "I've been wanting to pick your brain about some of the practical applications of my research." What I thought would be a quick chat turned into hours of talking about everything from geology to growing up with families that didn't get us. My parents wanted me to be a doctor or lawyer, she said. They couldn't understand why I'd want to play in the dirt for a living. I laughed, the parallel to my own life unmistakable. Mine were the same. Were? She asked. I cut them off a few months ago. Long story. Emma nodded. Good for you. Life's too short to keep toxic people around, even if they're blood. That simple comment, from someone who just met me but immediately understood, hit me harder than I expected. No attempts to make me feel guilty for abandoning my family. No suggestions that blood is thicker than water, or whatever other cliches people trot out. As the weeks passed, Emma and I grew closer. She was the first person I'd met who straddled both worlds I'd known, the academic sphere my parents worshipped and the practical, hands-on work they looked down on. She moved between them effortlessly, respecting both but bullshitting in neither. For the first time in my life, I was with someone who valued me for exactly the things my family had always seen as shortcomings. My directness, my practicality, my preference for honest work over superficial status. While I was thriving in my life, my family's was crumbling. I didn't seek out information about them, but I heard the things through mutual acquaintances. About 8 months after I cut them off, I got a call from my mom's former best friend, Diane. We'd always gotten along well. We chatted for a bit, catching up on general stuff. According to Diane, my parents had been living far beyond their means for years, even before I started supporting them. Dad's investment advisor job had never paid what he pretended it did, and he'd been leveraging connections, and sometimes skirting ethical boundaries, to maintain the illusion of success. Your father's firm is investigating some irregularities with client referrals to Ryan's company. And Ryan? Well, Ryan's company is under scrutiny for misrepresentation to investors. I wasn't surprised about Ryan. He'd always taken shortcuts, relied on charm over substance. What kind of misrepresentation? I asked. After hanging up, I almost felt bad for them. But I didn't reach out. Their problems were of their own making, just as my success was of mine. Life continued. My business still thrived. My relationship with Emma deepened. The occasional updates about my family's downward spiral continued through mutual connections. Ryan was serving his sentence at a minimum security facility in California. My father had lost his appeal to keep his professional license and was now working retail at a golf equipment store. And I was not going to rescue them. They were not my problem anymore. As Mike put it one day at work, best thing those assholes ever did for you was push you away. Made room for the rest of us who actually give a damn about the real you. 1 year after cutting ties with my family, my life had transformed completely. I was engaged to Emma, who'd become not just my partner, but my best friend. My business had expanded. Everything was in place. I'd just returned from a site inspection in Nevada when my assistant mentioned an unusual call. Your mother phoned the office. She said it was urgent family business. I told her you were unavailable as instructed, but she insisted I tell you they're in Arizona and want to see you. For Thanksgiving. That was funny, actually. But I wanted to enjoy the show. I should have declined immediately. But I was curious, though. So I agreed to meet them at a hotel restaurant in Tucson. Emma offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to handle alone. I arrived early. When they entered the restaurant, the physical change in them was shocking. Dad looked different. His once commanding posture diminished. Mom had lost weight, her designer clothes replaced by simpler attire. Ryan wasn't with them, of course. He was still in prison. James, Mom said, thank you for seeing us. I nodded, gesturing for them to sit. No hugs, no handshakes. You look well, Dad said stiffly. Business must be good. It is, I said. Why are you here? Mom glanced at Dad. It's Thanksgiving. We wanted to see you. It's been a year. A year since I cut you off financially, I corrected. Not a year since you treated me like an embarrassment. After the awkward silence, Dad went on, this past year has been difficult. We lost a lot. The house, my job, our standing. I heard. Ryan's fraud didn't help, I imagine. Where is he? Mom hesitated. Serving his sentence in California. Dad cleared his throat. Look, son, we're in a financial bind. Legal fees, lost investments, my reputation. You need money, I said flatly. Mom corrected, reaching for my hand. I didn't take it. Family helps family. I'm sorry you're struggling, I said. But I can't help you. Can't or won't? Dad asked, the old authority creeping in. Both, I answered. My money is tied up in my business, my foundation, and my future with Emma. Emma? Mom asked. My fiancé. Mom looked surprised. Dad slumped. There's nothing you can do? I started over once, I said, when I left with nothing. Worked brutal shifts to build something. Learned that family isn't just blood. It's who actually gives a damn. I stood, ending the conversation. I wish you well, but I'm not your solution. Mom was stunned. You're just walking away? From your own family? You became this heartless? Sure, let's go with heartless. It's a lot easier than admitting you only care now because your bank account's on life support. Then I walked out, leaving them staring at the $30 I tossed for their drinks. Emma was waiting at home. Later that day, we headed over to Mike and Sarah's for Thanksgiving. Their place was packed with friends, kids running everywhere, football on the TV, and the smell of home cooking. Mike cornered me by the fridge. So, how'd the family reunion go? Great, I replied. He nodded. Good, screw 'em. I laughed. Then Sarah's brother Dave joined us. Yes, screw those. We laughed. He had no idea what we were talking about. The conversation moved on to Dave's Nightmare X, then to the football game, then to Mike's new truck. Life was good, and I couldn't be more grateful. Edit 1. Holy crap. Didn't expect this to blow up overnight. RIP my inbox. Thanks for all the comments and the kind words. Really appreciate it, fam. Edit 2. To the geniuses suggesting, but they're still your family. Congratulations on completely missing the entire point. Your medal for family loyalty is in the mail. Story 3. My fiancée told me she wishes she'd never left her college boyfriend for me. I called off our wedding, and now she's desperate to get me back. Hey, Reddit. Never thought I would be writing anything here, but I just need to get this off of my chest. So I, 29 male, work as a paramedic, been with my fiancée Erica, 27 female, for 3 years. She teaches elementary school. We were supposed to get married next spring. I own the house. She moved in about a year ago. But here's where things started getting weird. Around February, she started acting different. More time on her phone, wouldn't let me see who she was texting. Started going to bed earlier. Just overall distant. When I'd ask what was wrong, she'd blame work stress or wedding planning stress. The phone thing really bothered me. We'd always been cool about phones. If hers rang while she was in the shower, I'd answer it. Normal couple stuff. But suddenly she was protective as hell. Face down on the table, took it to the bathroom, wouldn't leave it charging where I could see it. I tried talking to her about it, but she'd insist everything was fine. Said I was being paranoid. So I backed off, started working extra shifts to save money for the honeymoon. We'd talked about Hawaii since she'd never been. So I backed off. Figured maybe I was being paranoid. Started picking up extra shifts to save more money for the honeymoon. We'd talked about going to Hawaii. She'd never been and always wanted to see the islands. I was putting in 60-plus hour weeks sometimes, which meant less time at home, less time to notice her weird behavior. The last few weeks before everything exploded, she was practically a different person. Still going through the motions of being my fiancé, still talking about the wedding and our future, but it felt fake, like she was acting out a role instead of actually being excited about marrying me. But I was still in denial, still making excuses. Thought maybe once we got through the wedding planning stress, things would go back to normal. Thought maybe she was just one of those people who gets overwhelmed by big events and shuts down emotionally. I was so wrong about everything. Last month we were supposed to go to dinner at this Italian place she picked out. Nothing special, just a Tuesday night date. Was looking forward to actually spending some quality time together, since we'd barely seen each other all week. She'd been weird all day though. I got home around 5 p.m. and she was already dressed, sitting on the couch just staring at her phone. When I said hi, she barely looked up. Asked if she was ready to go, and she said sure, in this flat voice like she was doing me a favor. We got to the restaurant and the hostess sat us at this nice table by the window. Finally, I asked what was wrong for probably the third time. She put her phone down and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Nervous, but also excited. I need to tell you something, she said. Calvin reached out to me. Calvin, her college ex-boyfriend. My stomach immediately dropped. She told me he'd found her on Instagram a few weeks ago. Said he'd been thinking about her, that he made a mistake when they broke up. They'd been talking, really talking about everything, about how they never should have broken up. I asked if she'd been texting her ex for weeks without telling me. She said it wasn't like that at first, just catching up. But then old feelings came back. What they had was different, intense, passionate. Then she dropped the bomb. You know what, Chandler? Calvin used to make me feel like I was drowning in the best way possible. With you, I feel like I'm floating in a kiddie pool. Safe, shallow, and boring as hell. I keep wondering if this is really what love is supposed to feel like, or if I'm just settling because you're convenient. Maybe Calvin is better for me. And there it was. She just called our 3-year relationship boring, called me convenient, said her ex was better for her. In a restaurant. I sat there for probably 30 seconds just staring at her. She looked nervous now, like she was starting to realize what she'd just said. but she didn't take it back. All right, I said finally. Well, now nothing's stopping you. Her face went white. I told her she just said her ex was better for her, so go be with him, but not while living in my house. She tried to backtrack, but I was done. Dropped 40 bucks on the table and told her I was going home, and expected her to be packing when I got there. The drive home was surreal. 3 years together, engaged for 6 months, and she basically just told me I was her consolation prize. That some jackass who dumped her in college was a better option than the guy who bought her a house to live in and was about to marry her. I kept replaying what she said, drowning in the best way possible versus floating in a kiddie pool. Safe, shallow, and boring. Convenient. Those words were going to be stuck in my head for a long time. When I got home, she was on the couch crying, but I was done with her tears. Told her to start packing her stuff. She tried to argue, but I went to the kitchen and canceled our joint checking account on my phone while she was talking. Called my bank too to make sure she couldn't access anything else. Took her about 2 hours to pack. I didn't help, just sat at the kitchen table and let her figure it out. When she was done, she stood by the door with her suitcases looking at me like she expected me to change my mind. She asked if I wanted the engagement ring back. Set it on the coffee table when I said yes. Before leaving, she said it was crazy to throw away 3 years over one conversation. You're the one who threw it away, I told her. I'm just cleaning up the mess. And that was it. She left, and I was suddenly single again after 3 years. Sitting in my house that was way too quiet, looking at an engagement ring on my coffee table, wondering what just happened. By the next morning, the phone calls started. First was my mom, then my sister Sasha, then my dad. Word travels fast when you're supposed to get married in 2 months, and suddenly your fiancé moves out. I kept it simple with all of them. Told them Erica decided she wanted to be with someone else, and I wasn't going to compete for my own fiancé. My parents were pissed on my behalf. My mom wanted to know if there was another man involved, and when I told her about Calvin, she went off about how Erica was throwing away a good thing for a fantasy. My dad was more practical, asked if I needed help with any of the wedding vendors or canceling stuff. Sasha just called Erica an idiot, which honestly made me feel better. The hardest call was from Erica's parents. Her mom called me crying, begging me to work things out with their daughter. She kept saying that Erica was just confused and scared about getting married, that it was normal to have doubts. I tried to explain that this wasn't about wedding jitters, but she wouldn't listen. Her dad left me a voicemail saying I was giving up too easily and that relationships take work. I didn't call either of them back. What was I supposed to say? That their daughter told me I was boring and convenient compared to her ex? That she'd been emotionally cheating for weeks? They wouldn't want to hear that shit anyway. Our mutual friends were the tricky part. Within a few days, people started reaching out asking what happened. I made a decision early on that I wasn't going to trash talk Erica, but I also wasn't going to lie to protect her feelings. When people asked, I just said, "Ask Erica about Calvin," and left it at that. That simple phrase told them everything they needed to know. Most people aren't stupid. They could figure out what happened from there. And honestly, I wanted her to have to explain herself. I wanted her to tell our friends why she threw away our relationship for her college ex. Word spread fast. Our friend group isn't huge, maybe 15 people total, and within a week, pretty much everyone knew the basic story. The reactions were mixed, but mostly in my favor. The guys were all on my side. They understood why I couldn't stay with someone who basically called me her backup plan. Some of the women thought I was being too harsh and that I should have tried counseling or given her time to figure out her feelings. But screw that noise. I'm not going to counseling to convince someone to choose me over their ex. I'm not going to sit around while my fiancé figures out her feelings about whether she wants to be with me or some other dude. That's not how this works. The worst part was dealing with all the wedding stuff. We'd already put deposits down on everything. Venue, catering, photographer, DJ, flowers. Some vendors were understanding when I explained the situation. The photographer was cool about it, said she'd been doing weddings for 20 years and seen it all before. Only charged me a small cancellation fee. Others were less sympathetic. The venue kept our entire deposit, said it was too late to rebook for our date. The caterer wanted to charge us for food we'd already ordered. All told, I was out about $8,000 in deposits and cancellation fees. $8,000 for the privilege of finding out my fiancé thought I was boring. But here's the thing. I didn't ask Erica to help with any of the financial hit. I could have taken her to small claims court for half the costs, but I wanted a clean break. The money sucked to lose, but it was worth it to not have to deal with her anymore. The vendors weren't even the hardest part. It was calling all our friends and family to let them know the wedding was off. These conversations were brutal. Everyone wanted more details, wanted to know if there was any chance we'd work things out. The weirdest reaction came from some of the teachers at Erica's school. 3 different women reached out to me, not to defend Erica, but to check on me and basically say she'd screwed up. These are people who work with her every day, and they were taking my side. That told me everything I needed to know about how she was handling the situation at work. Apparently, she'd been telling people that we grew apart and had different visions for the future. Typical bullshit to make herself look better. But teachers are smart, and they could probably see right through her story. Plus, if she was acting weird at work the same way she was acting weird at home, they probably knew something was up. About 2 weeks after she moved out, I heard through a friend that Erica had been posting on social media about following your heart and not settling for less than you deserve. That pissed me off more than anything. She was making it sound like I was the one who wasn't good enough, like she'd outgrown me or some shit. But I didn't respond, didn't post anything about my side of the story, didn't try to set the record straight publicly. I figured the truth would come out eventually, and getting into a social media war with my ex-fiancé wasn't going to help anyone. The hardest part was just being alone in the house again. For over a year, I'd gotten used to having someone there when I got home from work. Someone to cook dinner with, watch TV with, talk about my day with. Suddenly it was just me and way too much quiet. I threw myself into work, picked up extra shifts whenever I could. Staying busy helped, and the overtime pay would help make up for the money I'd lost on wedding deposits. My partner at work, Mike, knew what was going on and was cool about covering for me when I needed to make vendor calls or deal with wedding stuff. The guys at work were supportive too. Couple of them had been through divorces and told me I was lucky to find out who she really was before I married her instead of after. They were right, but it still sucked. About 3 weeks after everything went down, I was starting to feel like maybe I could move on. The immediate shock and anger was wearing off, and I was beginning to think about what I wanted to do next. Maybe travel somewhere I'd always wanted to go. Maybe renovate the house. Maybe just focus on work and figure out the rest later. That's when everything got a whole lot more interesting. For about 6 weeks after everything went down, my life was actually pretty good. I know that sounds weird considering I just had my engagement blown up, but hear me out. Once I got past the initial shock and anger, I realized how much stress had been lifted off my shoulders. No more wondering why she was being distant or secretive with her phone. No more wedding planning stress or arguing about guest lists and centerpieces. I could come home from work and just relax without having to analyze every conversation for hidden meaning. I'd blocked Erica's number and all her social media right after she moved out, so if she was trying to contact me, I wouldn't know. And honestly, I didn't want to know. She'd made her choice clear as day when she told me Calvin was better for her. Far as I was concerned, she could go live happily ever after with her college ex and leave me alone. Around this time, I started talking to this nurse from the ER named Veronica. Nothing serious at first, just casual conversation during downtime between calls. She was cool though, funny, smart, and definitely easy on the eyes. More importantly, she didn't seem to have any crazy ex-boyfriend drama going on. The contrast was pretty stark. Veronica would laugh at my stupid jokes, ask questions about my work, remember details from previous conversations. All the basic relationship stuff that Erica had stopped doing months before our breakup made me realize how checked out Erica had really been toward the end. I wasn't looking to jump into anything serious right away, and Veronica seemed to understand that. We were just 2 people enjoying each other's company, without any pressure or expectations. It was refreshing as hell after years of relationship drama and wedding planning stress. Then one afternoon, my buddy Joey calls me laughing. I was at home doing some work around the house when my phone rang, and I could barely understand him at first because he was cracking up so hard. "Dude," he finally managed to get out, "you're not going to believe this shit." Joey works with a guy whose girlfriend is friends with one of Erica's teacher friends. Small world, lots of connections. Anyway, apparently word had gotten back to him about what happened with Erica and Calvin. "Your ex got dumped," he said, still laughing. "Calvin dumped her." I sat down on my couch, trying to process this information. "What do you mean dumped her?" "I mean he used her for about 6 weeks, and then told her he didn't really love her anymore. Said he just wanted to make sure about his feelings or some bullshit like that." The irony was incredible. After all that talk about their epic love story and how passionate their connection was, Calvin had basically used her for a hookup and tossed her aside. Again, just like he did in college. According to Joey's source, Calvin had been pretty upfront about it. Told Erica that being with her again made him realize they'd both changed too much since college, that what they'd had was probably just nostalgia, and that he didn't see a future with her. Basically everything she should have figured out before blowing up her engagement. "Get this," Joey continued. "Apparently she's been calling him nonstop trying to get him to change his mind. Dude had to block her number. I felt a weird mix of emotions hearing this. Part of me felt vindicated. I'd been right about Calvin being a piece of shit who would hurt her again. Part of me wanted to laugh at the irony of her getting a taste of her own medicine. But mostly I felt relieved that I'd dodged this bullet. The next few days I heard more details through the grapevine. Apparently Erica had been posting on social media about learning to love yourself and knowing your worth right up until Calvin dumped her. Then suddenly all her posts disappeared and she went quiet online. She'd also been telling people at work that she was exploring what real love feels like and how she'd never been happier. Her teacher friends had been supportive at first, but when the truth came out about Calvin using her, some of them apparently felt pretty uncomfortable about how she'd handled the whole situation. I heard from my sister Sasha that Erica's mom had called my mom, crying about how her daughter was going through a difficult time and asking if there was any chance I'd consider talking to Erica. My mom politely but firmly told her no, that Erica had made her choice and needed to live with the consequences. About a week after Joey's call, I was at the grocery store when I ran into one of our mutual friends, Lisa. She'd been at our engagement party, was supposed to be a bridesmaid. Awkward as hell to see her, but she was actually cool about it. I just want you to know, she said. Most of us think you handled everything really well. What Erica did was messed up, and you had every right to walk away. That felt good to hear. Sometimes when you're in the middle of drama, you start questioning whether you overreacted or made the wrong choice. But hearing from someone who knew both of us that I'd done the right thing was reassuring. Lisa also confirmed what I'd been hearing about Calvin. She really thought he was going to leave his whole life behind to be with her, she said. Like she was talking about them moving in together and everything. It was delusional. Apparently, Calvin lived about 3 hours away and had his own life, job, probably other women he was seeing. The idea that he was going to uproot everything for a woman he'd already dumped once was pretty ridiculous when you thought about it. But that's what happens when you build a fantasy in your head based on nostalgia and emotional cheating. You convince yourself that your ex was this perfect person who got away, when in reality, they're just another flawed human being who already showed you once that they don't want to be with you. A few days later, Erica started trying to contact me. She called from different numbers since I'd blocked her original one. I didn't answer any of them. Then she showed up at the fire station where Joey works part-time, asking him to give me a message about how sorry she was and how she'd made a huge mistake. Joey told her to kick rocks. Told me later that she looked like shit, like she hadn't been sleeping or eating right. Part of me felt bad about that, but a bigger part of me thought she'd earned every bit of misery she was feeling. When showing up at my friend's work didn't get my attention, she apparently decided to try a different approach. She wrote this massive Facebook post about our relationship and breakup. I didn't see it directly because I had her blocked, but Sasha screenshot it and sent it to me. The post was insane. Complete revisionist history about what happened between us. According to her version, I never really loved her and couldn't accept that she had a romantic history. She said I abandoned her when she needed support the most, and that I was too immature to handle adult relationship problems. Not a single word about Calvin. Not a single mention of her telling me I was boring and convenient compared to her ex. Just a bunch of bullshit about how I was the problem and she was the victim. The comments were pretty brutal, though. A bunch of our mutual friends called her out for rewriting history. Someone posted, "Didn't you leave him for your ex?" Another person said, "This isn't how I remember it happening." Even some people I didn't know were commenting about how her story didn't add up. She deleted the post after a few hours, but the damage was done. Everyone could see she was trying to make herself look better by throwing me under the bus, and most people weren't buying it. That's when I knew she was really desperate. When someone starts making up stories on social media to make their ex look bad, they've hit rock bottom. And I was glad as hell that I wasn't part of that mess anymore. So my 30th birthday rolls around about 3 months after everything went down. Normally, I'm not big on birthday celebrations. Just feels like another day to me. But my family has always made a huge deal about birthdays, especially milestone ones. And they weren't about to let me skip it just because I'd recently become single again. I'd been seeing more of Veronica over the past month. When I mentioned my birthday party, she seemed excited to meet my family, which was a good sign. The day of the party, I woke up actually feeling pretty good. 30 years old, owned my own house, had a solid job, good friends, and was seeing someone who didn't think I was boring or convenient. Not a bad place to be, all things considered. Hell of a lot better than where I'd thought I'd be a few months earlier, when I was stressed about wedding planning and dealing with Erica's weird moods. Veronica showed up around 3 with this amazing chocolate cake she'd made herself. She remembered me mentioning once that I hated the artificial taste of most store-bought frosting, so she'd made the whole thing herself. Little gestures like that meant more to me than she probably realized. My mom loved her immediately. They spent like 20 minutes talking about the cake recipe and cooking in general. My dad was grilling burgers and invited Veronica to try his secret sauce, which he never shares with anyone. Sasha pulled me aside and whispered that she approved, which was huge because Sasha has never liked any of my girlfriends. The contrast with how Erica used to act at family events was pretty stark. Erica always seemed like she was doing me a favor by showing up, like spending time with my family was some kind of chore she had to endure. She'd be polite but distant, checking her phone constantly, complaining later about how long the events went, or how my dad told the same stories over and over. Veronica actually seemed to be having fun. She was asking my mom about embarrassing childhood stories, laughing at my dad's terrible jokes, playing cornhole with Tom and holding her own. She fit right in like she'd been coming to family gatherings for years. Around 6 p.m., we were all sitting around the fire pit my dad had built last summer. Good food, good company, couple of the guys telling stories about stupid calls we'd been on at work. I was thinking this might be one of the better birthdays I'd had in years. Definitely better than last year when Erica spent the whole time on her phone and barely acknowledged it was my birthday. That's when someone knocked on the front door. At first, I figured it was maybe a neighbor complaining about the noise or asking us to move cars or something. We'd been pretty loud, and it was a Saturday evening. But when I opened the door, there was Erica standing on my porch with a wrapped present and this big fake smile like nothing had ever happened between us. Happy birthday, Chandler! I just stared at her. She looked different, thinner, like she hadn't been eating right, dark circles under her eyes like she wasn't sleeping well. Her hair was different too, shorter, like she'd cut it herself or gone to some cheap salon. She was trying to look happy and confident, but I could see the desperation underneath. What are you doing here, Erica? I brought you a gift. Can I come in for a minute? The conversation behind me in the backyard had gotten quieter. People probably wondering who was at the door, if everything was okay. Last thing I wanted was to bring this drama into my birthday party with my family and Veronica there. You can't just show up here uninvited. I know. But it's your birthday, and I felt bad that we're not talking. I just wanted to give you this, and maybe we could talk for a few minutes. She held out the present like it was some kind of peace offering. Probably something she'd bought months ago when we were still together, before she decided Calvin was better than me. The whole situation was surreal. My ex-fiancé showing up at my birthday party after telling me I was boring and convenient, after getting dumped by the guy she left me for. About what? About us. About how stupid I was. About how much I miss what we had. I actually laughed, which seemed to surprise her. You miss what we had? You mean the boring, convenient relationship? The kiddie pool? Her face turned red. She'd probably hoped I'd forgotten about that comment, or that time would have softened the impact of those words. But you don't forget when someone you love tells you that you're their backup plan. She tried to backtrack, saying she was upset when she said that she didn't mean it. But we both knew she did mean it. People don't say things that specific and hurtful unless they've been thinking them for a while. That's when the front door opened behind me and Veronica stepped out. Everything okay out here? The look on Erica's face was priceless. She went from hopeful to shocked to angry in about 2 seconds. You could see the gears turning in her head. I was supposed to be sitting at home miserable and alone, waiting for her to come back. I wasn't supposed to have moved on, especially not with someone who was clearly attractive and put together. Who is this? Erica's voice got loud and shrill. Veronica introduced herself calmly, said she must be Erica. Professional as hell, didn't take the bait or get drawn into drama. Just acknowledged the situation and stayed composed. You're already dating someone else. Erica was getting louder now. It's been 2 months. Actually, it's been almost 3 months since you chose Calvin over me, I corrected her. And yeah, I'm dating someone who actually wants to be with me. That's when Erica completely lost her shit. Started screaming about how I never fought for our relationship and how I replaced her like she meant nothing. Classic projection. She was the one who'd thrown away our relationship for her ex, but somehow I was the bad guy for moving on with my life. Veronica just stood there looking uncomfortable, but not backing down. She didn't try to defend herself or get into an argument with my ex. Just stayed calm and let Erica make an ass of herself on my front lawn. The yelling drew attention from the backyard. My dad came around the side of the house to see what was going on, took one look at the situation, and told Erica she needed to leave. When she refused and kept screaming, Sasha came out too and told her to get off our property before they called the cops. My family had never really liked Erica, but they'd been polite for my sake. Now that we weren't together anymore, they didn't have to pretend. Sasha in particular had zero patience for this bullshit and wasn't shy about saying so. But Erica wasn't done. She was in full meltdown mode now, probably realizing that her grand gesture wasn't going according to plan. She'd probably imagined showing up with a present and me being so grateful that she wanted me back that I'd forget everything that happened. Instead, she was having a screaming match with my family, while my new girlfriend watched from the sidelines. Not exactly the reunion she'd been hoping for. Finally, she stormed off toward her car, but before getting in, she turned around one more time. "This is ridiculous, Chandler. Don't you think it would just be easier if we got back together? We have 3 years of history." I looked at her standing there, mascara running down her face, holding a birthday present for a relationship she'd destroyed. 3 months ago, this woman had been my fiancé. Now she was a stranger having a breakdown on my lawn because I'd had the audacity to move on with my life. "Easier for who?" I called back. "Because it seems pretty easy for me right now." She got in her car and drove off, spinning her tires like a teenager having a tantrum. I went back inside to my party, where Veronica squeezed my hand and didn't ask any questions. My family was pissed but got over it quickly. The rest of the night was actually really fun. Like Erica's visit had been some weird intermission that we all agreed to ignore. I never opened her present, threw it in the trash the next morning without even looking at what was inside. Whatever it was, I didn't want or need it. That chapter of my life was closed, and no amount of birthday gifts or dramatic gestures was going to reopen it. About a month after the birthday incident, I heard through the grapevine that Erica had moved back in with her parents. Apparently, she couldn't afford her own place on a teacher's salary without someone splitting bills with her. The irony wasn't lost on me. She'd thrown away a relationship with someone who owned his own house and had a stable career for a guy who used her for 6 weeks and dumped her. I also heard she'd taken a leave of absence from teaching. Whether that was voluntary or the school suggested it after her behavior became too erratic, I don't know. But it couldn't have been easy explaining to her coworkers why she was suddenly single and living with her parents again after being engaged just a few months earlier. Joey kept me updated on the gossip, probably more than I needed to know. Apparently, Erica had been trying to get back in touch with other guys from her past, not just Calvin. Like she was working through a list of exes, trying to find someone to take her back. Pretty sad when you think about it, but that's what happens when you burn bridges for no good reason. The funniest part was hearing about how Calvin reacted when he found out about her birthday party visit. Apparently, someone had told him about her showing up at my house, and he was pissed. Called her crazy and told mutual friends that he was glad he'd gotten out when he did. The guy who'd convinced her to leave me was now talking shit about her to anyone who would listen. That's the thing about guys like Calvin. They're great at talking women into bad decisions, but they disappear the moment things get complicated. He'd filled her head with bullshit about their epic love story and how they were meant to be together, then bailed the second he got what he wanted. And now he was acting like she was the problem. But honestly, I stopped caring about the Erica drama pretty quickly. I had better things to focus on, like building something real with Veronica and advancing my career. The whole situation had taught me what I actually wanted in a relationship. Someone who chose me first, not someone who needed to be convinced that I was worth their time. Around the 6-month mark after our breakup, Veronica and I decided to move in together. She'd been practically living at my place anyway, and it made financial sense for both of us. More importantly, it felt right. I wasn't nervous about the commitment or worried about her changing her mind. When you're with the right person, these decisions feel natural instead of forced. Then, 2 months later, I ran into one of Erica's teacher friends at the grocery store. Lisa, the same one who told me I'd handled everything well. She mentioned that Erica was back to teaching, but at a different school across town. Apparently, she'd needed a fresh start, away from people who knew about the whole Calvin situation. Lisa also mentioned that Erica had been asking about me, wanting to know if I was still with that nurse and whether I seemed happy. The fact that she was still keeping tabs on my life through mutual acquaintances told me she probably wasn't doing as well as she wanted people to think. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd moved on completely, built a new life with someone who actually wanted to be with me, and I wasn't interested in whatever ongoing drama Erica was dealing with. Some people learn from their mistakes and grow as human beings. Others keep making the same bad choices and wondering why their lives don't improve. The wedding dress she'd bought was probably still hanging in her parents' closet somewhere, an expensive reminder of the life she'd thrown away for a fantasy. Meanwhile, I was building something real with someone who thought I was worth fighting for, instead of someone who saw me as a backup plan. A year after our breakup, Veronica and I got engaged. Nothing huge or dramatic, just a quiet proposal during a weekend trip we'd planned together. Erica finally broke her silence. She sent me a long text from a number I didn't recognize. Probably borrowed someone else's phone since I still had her blocked. The message was a novel, full of apologies and excuses and begging for one more chance to explain. She said she'd been going through therapy and realized she'd made the biggest mistake of her life. That Calvin had been a fantasy and I was the real thing. That she'd spent the past year thinking about me every day and regretting everything that happened. She claimed she was ready to fight for us now and wanted to meet up to talk about getting back together. I didn't respond to the text. Didn't even acknowledge that I'd received it. Erica had said everything she needed to say a year ago when she told me Calvin was better for her. Nothing had changed except that her backup plan had fallen through and she was realizing that good guys don't wait around forever. Erica taught me what I don't want in a relationship. Veronica showed me what I do want, and that's worth everything. Story 4. This story is titled, My Golden Child Sibling Got Switzerland $15,000 Trip for Graduation from My Parents while I got a mug. They returned home to find my new Corvette in the driveway. The look on their faces was priceless. All right, so I gotta get this off my chest. It's a long one, so buckle up. I'm 25 male with a twin sister, and my whole damn life has been this weird gaslighting experiment where my parents pretended they treated us the same while doing the exact opposite. On the surface, my folks were all about this perfect family image. We love our twins equally. They'd tell literally everyone at neighborhood BBQs and family gatherings. We're so blessed to have both of you, they'd say at our joint birthday parties. They'd post these perfect family photos on Facebook with captions like, our amazing twins and all that crap. You know the type. But there were always these little things that didn't add up. And over time, they started to form a pattern I couldn't ignore. Like how when Sis got a 92 on a math test, they'd take her out for ice cream to celebrate. But when I got a 94 on my history final, that's what we expect from you. Or how when she made the volleyball team, they rearranged their work schedules to make it to every game. But when I joined the debate club, they were too busy to come to competitions. One of the first memories I have of this was in 4th grade. We both tried out for this gifted program at school. I got in, she didn't. Instead of being happy for me, my parents immediately called the school to make sure there wasn't a mistake. There wasn't, but they still made me feel like I'd done something wrong by succeeding where she hadn't. Dad would take my twin shopping for quality clothes for college interviews, but told me to just wear what I had when it was my turn. Girls need more options, he'd shrug when I pointed it out. Mom would spend hours helping Sis with her math homework, but when I asked for help with English essays, figure it out yourself, you're smart. My parents were master manipulators when it came to making this crap seem normal. They had this way of justifying every difference with some bullshit reason that made it sound fair if you didn't think about it too hard. Your sister needs more help with science. That's why we got her a tutor. Meanwhile, I struggled with Spanish, but apparently just needed to apply myself more. Your sister's more social. That's why she needs a phone upgrade. But me wanting a better laptop for video editing projects was wasteful spending. I started keeping a mental scorecard around 14, tracking the little inequalities that were piling up. Sister gets new laptop for school. I get the hand-me-down desktop. Sister gets driving lessons from mom. I get told to practice in the empty church parking lot on weekends. Sister's friends can stay over anytime. Mine need to be approved a week in advance. It was never major enough to call them out without sounding like a whiny bitch, but that shit adds up over time. It's like death by 1,000 tiny cuts. The crazy part is I didn't even realize how bad it was until I started hanging at friends' houses more often. Seeing how other parents treated siblings who weren't even twins made me realize something was seriously off in my house. My buddy Jake's parents bent over backward to make sure both their kids got the same opportunities. Same curfews, same allowance, same rules. My parents? They'd bend over backward to explain why my sister deserved more of everything. For years, I convinced myself I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just less deserving? Maybe she really did need more support? The head games were the worst part, making me doubt what was right in front of my face. By high school, the pattern was so obvious I couldn't ignore it. When we both got our licenses, Sis got access to mom's car whenever she wanted. I had to provide detailed itineraries and destinations to borrow dad's truck, and even then it was usually a no. When we both applied to colleges, they spent hours helping her with applications, proofreading essays, scheduling campus tours. Me? The website explains everything you need to know. After years of this, you start to accept your place. Because my parents played it smart, they reached the master's level of gaslighting. Second best, the less important twin. The one they had to have because, well, twins come in pairs. Don't get me wrong, they never, abused me or anything dramatic like that. They provided the basics. I had food, clothes, a room. They came to parent-teacher conferences. They remembered my birthday. It was the same as Sis's, so kind of hard to forget. But there's a big difference between providing for a kid and making them feel valued. I got the former, sis got both. By the time we finished high school, college rolls around, and I'm thinking this is finally my chance to break free from being the other twin. Sis went to our parents' fancy alma mater, which was like this private university that costs an arm and a leg. Obviously, they covered every penny: tuition, housing, meal plan, the works. She even got this sweet apartment just off campus that they paid for because the dorms were too noisy for studying. Meanwhile, I cobbled together some scholarships and financial aid to attend state school. Not a bad school at all, just not the prestigious name my parents wanted to brag about at their country club. When I got my acceptance package, Dad's first comment was, "Well, it's affordable at least." I still needed a part-time job at the campus IT help desk to cover books and living expenses. When I called home that first semester to say I was struggling to balance work and classes, Dad straight up told me, "This is good for you. You need to learn financial responsibility." While my sister would post pics of her shopping sprees that Mom and Dad funded, the excuse was always, "We just don't have enough for both of you," with this fake sad face. "And your sister's program is more expensive." Funny how they always had enough for her spring break trips to Cancun, though. Or the time they surprised her with a MacBook Pro because her design class needed it, but made me keep using my 5-year-old laptop that took 10 minutes to boot up. Whatever. I kept my head down and actually found my thing in college: video editing. It started with helping some friends with their film class projects. Then I got connected with some small YouTubers who needed editing. Before long, I was doing freelance work for actual channels with subscribers and shit, then some smaller brands and businesses. Built up a decent client list while juggling classes. Even started making pretty good money. Nothing crazy, but enough that I didn't have to work at the help desk by senior year. Parents never asked much about it. When I'd try to show them projects I was proud of, they'd just nod and say stuff like, "That's nice," before changing the subject to whatever my sister was doing. They just assumed I was messing around online whenever I mentioned working on projects. My dad once actually referred to my work as my little computer hobby when relatives asked what I was studying. Meanwhile, Sis's internship at some marketing firm was apparently the greatest achievement since someone invented sliced bread. Then came graduation. We were finishing the same semester. Her with her business degree, me with digital media. My grades were actually better than hers, not that anyone cared, and I already had steady freelance work while she was still hunting for a job. We had this big family dinner to celebrate both of us finishing college. My grandmother was there, some aunts and uncles. The whole deal. My parents made this big show of having special gifts for both of us. They made all these hints about how they'd been planning something amazing for months. They handed Sis an envelope first. She opened it and literally screamed like she'd won the lottery. Inside was a confirmation for a 3-week luxury tour of Switzerland. We're talking 5-star hotels, first-class flights, private guided tours of the Alps, even like $2,000 spending money. Had to be at least $15,000 worth of trip. Everyone was oohing and aahing while she passed around the brochure showing the fancy hotels and shit. When it was my turn, my dad handed me a fucking $100 Amazon gift card and a world's greatest grad mug they probably grabbed from the campus bookstore on the way to dinner. The room got quiet. Even my sister looked uncomfortable. My grandma was doing that thing where she pretends to be super interested in her napkin. "Is there something else?" I asked, trying not to sound like a spoiled brat, but also wondering if they'd forgotten the rest of my gift in the car or something. My dad actually chuckled. "Your sister earned this trip with her perfect GPA and job lined up at the Anderson firm. What exactly have you accomplished besides playing on computers?" I just sat there staring at him. I didn't even have a job lined up because I was already working as a freelancer, making actual money. But that didn't count because it wasn't a corporate desk job. Mom jumped in. "We're just being practical, honey. Your sister has a career path. You need to focus on finding a real job instead of expecting rewards for doing the minimum." That was it. 22 years of pretending we were treated equally just went up in flames. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. There was no explanation that could make $15,000 versus $100 seem fair. No bullshit about different needs could cover this gap. My aunt tried to smooth things over by asking about my plans after graduation, but I was barely listening. The room felt like it was spinning. I just kept looking at that stupid mug while my sister talked about the chocolate tour she was going to take in Zurich. I didn't say anything, just nodded and excused myself early, claiming I had a freelance deadline. As much as I wanted to flip the table and tell them all to go fuck themselves, I just smiled and left. When I got back to my apartment, I just sat in the dark for hours. All these memories of similar gifts over the years came flooding back. It wasn't just my imagination. It wasn't me being sensitive. The proof was right there in the form of a first-class ticket to Switzerland versus a gift card that wouldn't even cover a decent textbook. They left for Switzerland with SS the following week, telling me to use the time to figure out my life, like I was some directionless loser instead of someone who'd worked his ass off through college while building a business. Mom texted pictures of Sis in front of the Matterhorn and eating fondue in some chalet. I stopped responding after the third day. I was sitting in my apartment feeling sorry for myself when my phone buzzed, pulling me out of my pity party. The caller ID made me pause. It was Uncle Josh. Now, here's some background. My dad has an older brother, Uncle Josh, and they haven't spoken in about 15 years. Some old grudge over my grandpa's will that my dad never really explains, just mumbles something about betrayal and inheritance. From what I gathered, Grandpa left Uncle Josh a valuable piece of land that Dad had his eye on, and my dad felt like he got cheated because he was the one who took care of their dad in his final years. Dad's stance on Uncle Josh was pretty extreme. He straight up banned us from seeing him when I was around 10, calling him a thief and a backstabber. Anyone who even mentioned his name was betraying the family. Dramatic? Definitely. Effective? Not so much. Because, of course, throughout these years, I ended up sneaking around to see him. Maybe it was rebellion, or maybe I was just desperate for someone who didn't treat me like I was invisible. Uncle Josh ran this small auto repair shop across town, and in high school, I'd tell my parents I was studying at the library or hanging with friends, then bike over there. We'd tinker with cars, and honestly, those afternoons meant more to me than anything happening back at home. My uncle was restoring this classic 1969 Corvette Stingray, candy apple red, all original parts. It was in rough shape when he got it, some rich dude's midlife crisis purchase that got neglected in a garage for years. Uncle Josh got it for a steal at an estate sale. He taught me how engines worked, how to replace brake lines, sand down rust spots, all that shit. Stuff my dad never bothered to show me because he was too busy teaching my sister how to golf or whatever. I'd help Uncle Josh on weekends, learning more from him in those garage sessions than my dad had taught me in my entire life. Well, Uncle Josh wasn't perfect. Heavy drinker, swore like a sailor, had 3 ex-wives, but he treated me like I mattered, asked about my interests, listened when I talked. Basic uncle shit that felt revolutionary after years of being the family afterthought. Back to where I left, so, after the Switzerland trip bullshit went down, I was sitting in my crappy apartment feeling sorry for myself. My roommates had all moved out after graduation, so I was alone with my thoughts, which is never a good place to be after a family mindfuck. I kept looking at that stupid world's greatest grad mug and feeling like the biggest loser on the planet. Then my phone rang. It was Uncle Josh. Hadn't heard from him in a few months. Hey kid, how's it going? Heard you graduated? I ended up telling him everything. The trip, the Amazon card, all of it. He just listened, not interrupting, then said, "Your dad always was a self-important prick. Even when we were kids. Come by the garage tomorrow. Got something to show you." When I got there the next day, he had the Corvette pulled out onto the lot, waxed and gleaming in the sun. The restoration we'd worked on for years was finally done, and holy shit, it was beautiful. The red paint job looked wet, the chrome sparkled, and the engine had that perfect rumble when he fired it up. "Hop in," he said, tossing me the keys. "You sure? We just finished it." I was nervous as hell. This car was easily worth $60,000 restored. You helped build half of it. You know how to drive it. We drove around town for an hour, that engine rumbling under us. People literally stopped to stare at stoplights. I felt like a badass for the first time in my life. When we got back to his place, he shut off the car, but told me to stay in the driver's seat. "This car has been my project for 10 years. You helped me bring her back to life during the last 5. Now I want you to have her." I thought he was joking. "Uncle Josh, I can't take your Corvette. This is your baby." He shook his head. "Look, I've got 3 other project cars, and your aunt's been on my ass about clearing out the garage. Plus my back can't handle crawling under these lowriders anymore. Consider it a graduation present from someone who's actually proud of you." I tried to argue, but he was serious. The paperwork was already drawn up. He'd planned this whole thing. By that evening, I was the owner of a restored '69 Corvette worth easily $60,000. "Won't this just piss off my dad more?" I asked as we finished the paperwork. Uncle Josh grinned. "Consider that a bonus." The timing couldn't have been more perfect. My folks and SS were due back from Switzerland in 2 days. I spent those 48 hours detailing that Corvette until you could see your face in the paint job. Every second, my mind kept replaying the moment they'd pull up and see it sitting there, gleaming like a challenge. I kept wondering, what would Dad do? Lose his mind? Try to act like it didn't bother him? Demand I move it before his precious neighbors saw it? The thoughts were eating me alive, but I wasn't backing down. The night before they landed, I parked the car right in their driveway, dead center, like a trophy. A chrome-plated declaration that I wasn't going to be sidelined anymore. I actually slept in my old bedroom that night. Well, tried to sleep. Mom had texted earlier asking if I could pick them up from the airport, but I accidentally overslept. They took a taxi instead. Not my problem. The next day, their plane landed around noon. I was sitting on the porch steps, nerves buzzing, when the taxi pulled up. I watched them unload. Dad mid-laugh about something with my sister. Then he saw it. The Corvette. His smile dropped so fast it was like someone flipped a switch. He stopped dead, eyes locked on the car, his face going from confusion to realization to, well, I couldn't tell if it was shock, anger, or both. And I just sat there, waiting to see which one it would be. "What the hell is that?" he demanded. He knew exactly what it was. He grew up in the muscle car era. That car wasn't just a vehicle to him. It was a statement. And the fact that I was the one making it, that was the real problem. "My graduation present," I said, forcing my voice to stay casual while my heart was pounding out of my chest. I wanted to sound unfazed, but my pulse was loud in my ears. I was bracing for the explosion, but I wasn't about to back down. Not this time. Mom rushed over, still pulling her luggage. "You can't afford something like this. What did you do? Please tell me you didn't take out a loan for a car?" I shrugged. "I didn't buy it. It was a gift." Dad circled the car, inspecting it like he was looking for flaws. When he saw the license plate frame from Uncle Josh's garage, he literally started shaking. "Josh gave you this car? You've been seeing Josh behind my back?" Sis just stood there with her Switzerland tan, looking confused, probably calculating how this affected her position as the favorite. "I've been helping Uncle Josh restore this Corvette for years," I said, not bothering to hide it anymore. "He taught me all about engines and bodywork. We rebuilt it together. He wanted me to have it since I'd put in so much work." Dad's face got darker with every word, like he was about to have a stroke. "All these years, you've been lying to us, going behind our backs to see him. You didn't give me much choice," I pointed out. "You banned us from talking to him when I was a kid." "Because he stole from this family," Dad shouted, spit flying. "I don't know anything about that. I just know he's always treated me with respect. Get that thing out of my driveway. Now." Dad was in full nuclear mode. Mom tried to play peacemaker, putting her hand on Dad's arm. "Let's all calm down and discuss this inside." Always trying to sweep conflict under the rug. But Dad was too far gone. "You have two choices," he said, jabbing his finger at me. "Return that car to Josh and apologize for going behind our backs, or pack your things and get out of this house." "I don't live here anymore," I reminded him. "I have my own apartment." "Then I guess we're done here," he said, grabbing his suitcase and heading inside. "Don't expect any help from us when that piece of junk breaks down, or you can't afford the insurance." Mom followed him, giving me this sad look like I was the one causing problems after years of their bullshit. Sis waited until they were inside before whispering, "The car's actually awesome, but you know how Dad feels about Uncle Josh." I just nodded. "Enjoy your Swiss chocolates." Later that night, Dad called. I thought maybe he'd calm down, but nope. "As long as you keep that car, you're choosing Josh over this family. Think about what you're doing. Return it and we can move past this." I didn't hesitate. "I already have thought about it. Maybe this isn't about Uncle Josh. Maybe it's about finally getting recognized for once instead of being the family afterthought. This is ridiculous. You're not an afterthought. We've given you everything. How dare you?" I hung up on him. First time I'd ever done that. Felt fucking amazing. That night, I drove around in my new Corvette with the windows down, stereo blasting, feeling like I'd just dropped a grenade in the middle of our family dynamic. Part of me felt guilty. I'm not usually a confrontational person, but a bigger part felt this weird sense of freedom, like I'd finally stopped pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. The next few days were intense. Mom called about 15 times. I let most go to voicemail, but when I finally picked up, she was in full damage control mode. "Your father didn't mean what he said. He was just shocked. You know how he gets when he's surprised." Classic mom. Always making excuses for Dad's temper. "He seemed pretty clear to me," I said. "He's just hurt that you've been seeing Josh all these years without telling us. It feels like a betrayal." I had to laugh at that. "A betrayal? You guys have been treating me like a second-class citizen my entire life, and me hanging out with Uncle Josh is a betrayal? That's not true. We've always loved you both the same." There was panic in her voice now. "Mom, you literally just gave Sis a $15,000 vacation while I got a mug. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending that's equal treatment." She tried to explain that away too. Something about how sis needed the confidence boost after some job interview didn't go well, and how they'd planned to do something for me later. Sure, Mom. Sure. Dad's approach was different. He texted, "When you're ready to act like an adult and discuss this rationally, let me know." This coming from the dude who'd basically thrown a tantrum in the driveway. The audacity of this guy. Meanwhile, sis was playing both sides. She'd text me stuff like, "Dad's really upset. You should apologize." And then in the next breath ask if I could take her for a ride in the Corvette sometime. Always looking out for number one, that girl. After about a week of this back and forth, Dad finally called. I figured he'd calm down, maybe was ready to have a real conversation about years of unequal treatment. He went straight to business mode. "I've been thinking about this situation, and I'm willing to make you an offer," he said, like this was some kind of negotiation. "I'm listening," I replied. "Return the car to Josh, and your mother and I will help you purchase something more appropriate for a new graduate. We could match what you've saved for a down payment on a sensible sedan." I nearly spit out my drink. "Are you serious right now?" "I'm trying to meet you halfway," he said, sounding annoyed that I wasn't jumping at his generous offer. "Dad, the Corvette is mine. Uncle Josh gave it to me as a graduation present, something you and Mom didn't bother to do in any meaningful way. That Amazon gift card was perfectly reasonable. Not everyone gets a luxury trip after college." Exactly my point. Not everyone, just sis. He changed tactics. "Think about the insurance costs, the maintenance. These old cars are money pits. I've thought about it. I can afford it. My computer hobby pays pretty well. Not that you've ever bothered to ask." There was a long pause. "As long as you keep that car, you're choosing to disrespect me and everything I've done for you. I won't have it parked in my driveway again." "Fine by me. I don't plan on visiting much anyway." "Is that how it's going to be? You're choosing a car over your family?" That's when I finally lost it. "No, Dad. I'm choosing to be treated with respect for once in my life. The car is just a symbol. This is about 25 years of you and Mom playing favorites and expecting me to pretend I don't notice." "That's ridiculous. We've never—" "Save it. I'm done pretending. Either acknowledge that you've treated us differently and apologize, or I'll be keeping my distance. Ball's in your court." He was quiet for a moment, then, "I think you need some time to cool off and reconsider your attitude. When you're ready to apologize for going behind our backs and accepting gifts from a man who stole from this family, we'll be here." Then he hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, feeling like I was in the Twilight Zone. How could he still not see it? Was he really that blind to his own behavior? Or was he just hoping I'd back down like I always had before? Either way, it was clear nothing was going to change. I texted Mom, "I'm not returning the car. I'm not apologizing for accepting a graduation gift from someone who actually values me. If Dad can't handle that, it's his problem." The next day, my grandmother called, curious about the car drama. I laid it all out: the favoritism, the Switzerland trip versus mug situation, Uncle Josh's gift, and Dad's ultimatum. Instead of defending my dad like I expected, she sighed and admitted that sometimes people convince themselves they're being fair when they're not. When I asked if she'd noticed the favoritism, she didn't hesitate. Everyone had seen it but didn't feel it was their place to say anything. That hit hard. I'd spent years thinking I was imagining it while everyone else just watched. When I asked what I should do, she was clear: keep the car, live my life, and stop shrinking myself to keep Dad comfortable. Coming from his own mother, that advice hit different. By week 3 of the standoff, Dad had moved to completely ignoring my existence. The funny thing was, while all this drama was playing out, my life was actually improving. That Corvette turned out to be a serious business asset. When I'd pull up to meetings with potential clients, they'd immediately want to talk about the car, which led to conversations about restoration, which led to me explaining my attention to detail, which led to contracts. I landed 2 major clients that month alone. I even started dating this cute barista who complimented the car when I drove through her coffee stand. We hit it off immediately, and for the first time, I was with someone who was genuinely interested in my work and didn't compare me to anyone else. As June turned to July, I was settling into my new normal. Minimal contact with my parents, occasional texts with sis, regular rides in my awesome car, growing business, new girlfriend. Things were looking up. Then I got the invitation to the annual family reunion at my grandparents' lake house in August. The one Uncle Josh was explicitly never invited to because Dad refused to attend if his brother was there. Grandma called personally to ask me to come. I want both my sons there this year. I'm not getting any younger, and this feud has gone on long enough. Your grandpa would finally be at peace if we put this behind us. Does Dad know Uncle Josh is invited? Not yet, she admitted, but he'll just have to deal with it. Life's too short for this nonsense. I didn't give her a final response. I spent a couple weeks wondering if I should even go. On one hand, I hadn't seen my grandma in months, and I genuinely missed her. On the other hand, voluntarily walking into a situation where both my dad and Uncle Josh would be present seemed like a recipe for disaster. I finally decided to attend after my girlfriend convinced me it might actually be good to have everything out in the open. At least it'll be in public with witnesses, she joked. Your dad can't completely lose his shit with your entire extended family watching. So I just went. I decided to arrive fashionably late to minimize awkward small talk. And yeah, I drove the Corvette. If I was going to face the music, might as well play the full symphony, right? When I pulled up, the driveway was already packed with cars. I could see people gathered on the back deck, the grill going, kids running around. Normal family stuff. I took a deep breath and headed in, scanning the crowd for my dad's face. I spotted him by the coolers, beer in hand, chatting with my Uncle Rob. He clocked me immediately, his expression changing from laughing to stone cold in an instant. Mom was nearby and gave me an awkward wave. Sis was showing off her Switzerland photos on her phone to our cousins. Grandma saved me by rushing over for a hug. You made it! Come get a plate, the burgers are almost ready. I made my rounds, saying hi to everyone while carefully orbiting around Dad. He was doing the same dance, keeping maximum distance between us. Mom kept glancing nervously between us, like she was watching a ticking bomb. Things were tense but manageable until Uncle Josh showed up about an hour later. He came around the side of the house carrying a watermelon. Grandma had obviously not warned anyone else he was coming because the entire backyard went silent. You could literally hear the ice melting in the coolers. Dad immediately stood up. What the hell is he doing here? Grandma, who'd been quietly tending the grill, finally spoke up. I invited him, David. He's my son too, and I'm tired of this nonsense. Dad looked like he'd been slapped. After what he did? You're choosing him over me? Nobody's choosing anyone over anyone, Grandma said firmly. We're all family, and it's time to act like it. Dad looked around at everyone staring, then grudgingly sat back down. Crisis temporarily averted. Uncle Josh nodded at me from across the yard, but kept his distance from Dad. Smart move. My cousin Jason, who's always been cool, came over to break the tension. Hey man, is that the Corvette out front? Can I see it? We walked out to the driveway, and a few other cousins followed, all curious about the car. I popped the hood to show off the engine, and everyone was genuinely impressed. Where'd you get it? My cousin Amber asked. Before I could answer, Uncle Josh had joined our little group. We restored it together, he said proudly. Kid's got a natural talent for mechanics. My cousin's eyes widened. Wait, this is the car? The one that caused the big fight? Word had obviously spread through the family grapevine. Yeah, this is it, I admitted. It's awesome, Jason said, running his hand along the fender. Uncle Josh has been showing me pictures of the restoration for years. I didn't know what to say to that. While my own dad had been dismissing my interests and achievements for years, Uncle Josh had apparently been bragging about me to the rest of the family. We were all still checking out the car when Dad appeared in the driveway, beer in hand, Mom nervously hovering behind him. So this is what betrayal looks like, he said loudly, obviously a few beers in at this point. My own son conspiring with my brother behind my back for years. I sighed. Here we go. Dad, no one was conspiring against you. I just helped my uncle restore a car. After everything we've done for you, he continued, ignoring me completely. That's when I snapped. I'd been holding back for weeks, years really, but something in me just broke. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Everything you've done for me? Like what exactly? We put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you, put you through college. I had scholarships and loans for college, I corrected him. And yeah, you provided the basics. Congrats on doing the legal minimum for your kid. By now, the entire family had gathered in and around the driveway, watching this drama unfold. My sister tried to jump in. Come on, they've always supported both of us. I couldn't handle it anymore. Years of keeping score, of swallowing the unfairness, came pouring out. Really? Remember when you got a car for our 16th birthday and I got a bus pass? Or when you got to go to Europe after high school and I got a gift card? Or how about 3 months ago when they spent $15,000 on your Switzerland trip while I got a fucking coffee mug? The whole family was dead silent now. Some looked shocked. Others were nodding like they'd seen this coming. All my life, I've watched them give you everything while telling me I needed to earn the same things. So don't tell me we were treated equally. Dad's face was purple. That's ridiculous. We've always treated you exactly the same. Uncle Josh snorted. Bullshit, Dave. You've been playing favorites since they were in diapers. And that's when shit went from bad to nuclear. Dad whipped around to face Uncle Josh. his eyes practically bulging out of his head. "You!" he shouted, jabbing his finger. "You don't get to say a damn word about my parenting. First you steal my inheritance, and now you're trying to steal my son from me?" Uncle Josh stood his ground. "Nobody stole anything. Dad left me the lake house because he knew I'd actually take care of it. And nobody stole your son either. You drove him away all by yourself." Dad lunged at Uncle Josh so fast nobody could react. He shoved him hard against the side of the Corvette. "You always take what's mine," he yelled, getting right in Uncle Josh's face. Uncle Josh tried to back up. "Dave, come on, don't do this." That's when Dad straight up punched Uncle Josh in the face. Like, full-on right hook to the jaw. Uncle Josh stumbled sideways, catching himself on the car. Everyone freaked. Grandma was yelling. Mom was screaming at Dad to stop. Cousins were pulling out phones to record this shit. I jumped between them before Dad could take another swing. "What the hell are you doing?" Dad tried to shove me aside. "Get out of the way." "No! You need to back off right now." Uncle Josh was wiping blood from his lip, looking more sad than angry. "This is exactly why your dad and I haven't spoken in 15 years, kid. He can't control his temper when he doesn't get his way." Dad was practically foaming at the mouth at this point. "Don't you talk to my son? He's my son, not yours." "Then maybe you should start acting like a father instead of a dictator," Uncle Joa shot back. I put my hand on Uncle Josh's shoulder, partly to check if he was okay, and partly to show my support. Dad looked at my hand, then at my face, and something in him just broke. "So that's how it is? You're choosing him over your own dad? Just by a car?" "I'm choosing to not let you assault your brother at a family reunion," I said. Dad laughed, a weird, hollow sound. "Well then, I guess you've made your choice." He looked me dead in the eyes. "You're not my son anymore." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. Everyone got quiet. Mom gasped. Sis looked like she might throw up. "David, you don't mean that?" Grandma said from the edge of the driveway. "I absolutely do," he said, not breaking eye contact with me. "No son of mine would betray his family like this." I should have been hurt, crushed even. But honestly, all I felt was relief, like the last chain tying me to years of emotional abuse had finally snapped. "Fine," I said calmly. "If that's how you want it." Dad seemed thrown by my lack of reaction. He'd expected me to beg for forgiveness, I think. When I didn't, he just turned and stormed toward his car. "David, wait!" Mom called, running after him. "Anyone who stays here is choosing that thief over me," Dad shouted over his shoulder. "Barbara, let's go!" Mom looked torn, glancing between Dad and me. "I'm sorry," she whispered before following him. Classic Mom, always choosing the path of least resistance. Dad's parting shot was directed at my sister. "Let's go!" he barked at her. To everyone's shock, including mine, she shook her head. "I'm staying," she said quietly. I think I need to hear this." Dad looked at her like she'd stabbed him in the back, then got in his car and peeled out of the driveway, alone. Mom hesitated, then ran after him, catching the car just as he was backing out. The family reunion basically imploded after that. Some relatives were arguing about whether they should have spoken up sooner. Others were checking on Uncle Josh's face. Just a cut lip, no real damage. Grandma was sitting on the porch steps looking exhausted. Uncle Josh refused ice for his lip and grabbed a beer instead. "Been expecting that punch for about 15 years, he said, wincing as he took a sip. "I'm sorry," I told him. "For what?" "You didn't throw the punch. But he hit you because of me. Because of the car." Uncle Josh shook his head. "No, kid. He hit me because he's always been a jealous, controlling asshole who can't stand when things don't go his way. Been that way since we were kids?" He looked around at the chaos of the ruined reunion. "This was my fault. I shouldn't have come." Grandma overheard and joined us. "Bullshit. This is your family too, Josh. David's the one who needs to grow up." I stuck around for another hour, chatting with Uncle Josh and my cousins while the tension cooled. My sister kept her distance, looking shell-shocked, but eventually came over. She admitted she'd never really noticed the favoritism, assuming they were just harder on me because I was more independent. When I told her that's exactly what they'd wanted her to think, she looked genuinely upset and apologized. It wasn't enough to erase years of resentment, but it was something. Driving home that night, I felt strangely lighter. Dad had effectively disowned me in front of the whole family, and somehow, it felt like freedom. Like I finally had permission to stop chasing approval I'd never get. The next day after the union shit, dozens of missed calls from Mom and Sis, but silence from Dad. Guess disowning someone means no talking. Uncle Josh called the next day. "Your dad showed up at my garage with a lawyer. Says he's suing me for alienation of affection. Claims I deliberately turned you against him." Mom called right after, crying. Your father is talking to lawyers about getting the Corvette back. Says Josh never had clear title. The car's legally mine, I reminded her. Title transferred months ago. Please, she begged. Just return it. It's tearing this family apart. The car isn't the problem, Mom. Dad's behavior is. 3 days later, Dad sent a cease and desist letter demanding I stop making defamatory statements about their parenting and return the illegally obtained vehicle. My lawyer friend said it wasn't worth the paper it was printed on. I honestly had enough, so I blocked everyone's numbers after that. Went full no contact except with Grandma. 2 weeks later, my business landed a major contract with Horizon Streaming. I moved into a house with a home office and hired 2 assistants to handle the workload. Uncle Josh and I still grab beers weekly. Dad's lawsuit threat fizzled out when his lawyer got shut down. According to Grandma, he's telling relatives I'm having a tantrum and will come crawling back, while Sis moved home after failing to find a job matching her expectations. The Corvette still runs beautifully. My girlfriend and I take weekend drives along the coast. No family drama in the rear view. Sometimes I wonder what might have been if they'd treated us equally. If Dad had valued my interests the way he valued my sister's. If Mom had stood up for me instead of enabling his behavior. But you can't change the past. You can only decide what you'll accept going forward. And I decided I wouldn't accept being the family scapegoat anymore. The twin who was never good enough built a life that speaks for itself. That's the only validation that matters. TLDR. After Dad disowned me at the family reunion, he tried suing my uncle and taking over my business. I cut them all off and now I'm living my best life. Story 5. She wanted marriage perks without wife duties. So I gave her exactly what she gave me. And now she is begging me to go back as before. So I, 37 male, have been thinking about whether to post this for a while. I figure maybe someone else is in the same boat and could use my experience. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Ryan. I work in cybersecurity. Yeah, good with computers and all that shit. I was always the quiet, reliable guy who worked hard and played by the rules. Grew up with my dad teaching me about respect and hard work, while Mom showed me how to cook and take care of myself. Dad always said, never let anyone walk all over you, but I guess I forgot that lesson for a while. I met Vanessa, 35 female, at a friend's BBQ back in 2017. She was gorgeous, blonde, fit, always dressed like she just stepped out of a magazine. She worked at a marketing agency, making decent money, but nothing compared to my senior security analyst salary. We've been married for 3 years after dating for 2. Man, those early days were something else. We couldn't keep our hands off each other. Everything felt balanced, and we both actually gave a shit about making things work. I cooked. My dad's famous chili was her favorite. She cleaned. I fixed stuff around the house. She handled the social calendar. We both contributed to bills. It was a partnership, you know? But then things started shifting after our first anniversary. Small stuff at first that I didn't really notice. She stopped cooking those special meals she used to make. Started being less interested when I talked about work or my hobbies. Made more demands without doing her part. I brushed it off and made excuses for her. She's stressed from work. Her mom's being difficult again. She's tired. Whatever. I basically came up with every possible explanation except the obvious one staring me right in the face. I was being used for stability, status, and money, while getting less and less in return. My buddy Derek, known him since high school, works construction, noticed it before I did. Dude, every time I see you guys, she's on her phone ignoring you and you're carrying everything, he said during a poker night. I laughed it off, told him to mind his own marriage. Shoulda listened. The moment I finally woke up happened after I worked a 16-hour shift dealing with a major security breach at the company. Came home exhausted to a dark house at 11 p.m. No dinner, even though she'd been home all day. The sink was piled with her dishes from breakfast and lunch. The laundry I'd asked her to handle sat untouched. Yet somehow she had found time to get her $200 nails done, have a $90 lunch with friends at that trendy bistro downtown, and buy a new $350 purse. Her Instagram story with the caption, "Treating myself because I deserve it," confirmed all that. When I asked about the housework we had agreed to share, she literally rolled her eyes at me. I didn't sign up to be a housewife, she said, not even looking up from her phone as she was texting with her bestie Megan, another entitled princess who married some banker guy. Are you fucking kidding me right now? I worked 16 hours keeping our company from losing millions in a cyber attack, and you can't even put clothes in the dryer? I said, my voice rising. Ugh, don't be so dramatic, Ryan, she snapped. I had a busy day too. That busy day was a literal spa day according to her location tags. I told her I wasn't asking for a housewife, just a partner. That's when she dropped the bomb that changed everything. She straight up told me she wanted the marriage perks without the duties. What exactly do you think you're contributing to this relationship? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked genuinely surprised at the question. I'm your wife. My presence should be enough. Then she literally waved her hand around her body like she was a prize on a game show. You should be grateful I chose you. Do you know how many guys would kill to be with someone like me? Then she listed her contributions. She attended company events with me, where she spent the entire time networking for her own career, maintained her appearance using my credit card, and hadn't cheated that I knew of. Like fidelity was some special favor instead of the basic bare minimum in a marriage. Most guys would be thrilled to have a hot wife who lets them have sex with her. She actually said those words to my face. I was speechless. That night, sleeping on the couch, because she had her toxic friends Megan and Tiffany over late drinking my expensive whiskey and scream laughing at reality TV while I needed rest before another early shift, something broke inside me. Not my heart, my illusion. I realized I had been living in a completely one-sided relationship where I gave everything while she took. I'd become an ATM with a dick, nothing more. I went to work the next morning with this weird new clarity, like someone had adjusted the focus on a blurry picture. I drove the 45 minutes to my office in silence. No podcast, no music, just thinking. I thought about how she spent the money I earned, $140,000 per year plus bonuses, while keeping her own separate, barely $55,000. How she enjoyed the house I mostly paid for without lifting a finger to maintain it. How she leveraged our marriage for social status but treated me like an afterthought. I called Derek on my lunch break and finally opened up. Sounds like you married my ex, he said. Time to grow a spine and show her there's consequences. I didn't initially want revenge or drama. I'm not naturally that type of guy. My dad raised me to be respectful and fair. But I was starting to realize that sometimes justice looks like revenge to entitled people. I wanted equality, or at the very least, to stop being taken advantage of. If she wanted the perks of marriage without the duties, then maybe it was time she experienced exactly what she was giving. Nothing. That day, I opened a new encrypted spreadsheet at work. At the top, I typed cold justice plan. Under it, I started mapping out exactly how I would give her exactly what she was giving me. No more, no less. Not just out of self-preservation, but as a fucking wake-up call she desperately needed. The morning after that eye-opening conversation, I sat in my car before heading into work and made a detailed list of everything Vanessa had stopped contributing to our marriage. The list was depressingly long. Cooking, hadn't made a meal in 4 months. Cleaning, her clothes constantly on the floor. Emotional support, couldn't remember the last time she asked about my day. Sex, twice in the last 3 months. Both times she just laid there on her phone half the time. Financial contribution to shared expenses, maybe $500 a month to my 4,000 plus. And even basic respect, constantly interrupted me, mocked my hobbies to her friends. Yet she expected premium housing, our $750,000 home. Social status as a married woman, Mrs. Cybersecurity Executive, was literally in her Instagram bio. Access to my premium health insurance, inclusion on my family vacations, my parents' lake house she loved to show off on social, and full use of my credit for major purchases. I decided my first move would be financial. For years, we'd had a joint account where I deposited 80% of my income, about $9,000 a month after taxes, while she contributed sporadically, claiming her marketing job didn't pay enough. Meanwhile, she maintained a separate personal account I had no access to. When I checked our joint account that morning, I discovered she had withdrawn $1,700 for shopping just the day before, while claiming we needed to cut back on groceries because inflation is killing us. Her words when I wanted to buy steaks last week. That afternoon, I visited the bank and opened my own separate account at a completely different bank where she had no relationship. I transferred 75% of the joint funds there, about $22,000, leaving just enough to cover the immediate bills. I set up my direct deposit to send only a fixed percentage to the joint account, exactly matching the percentage of her income she contributed, which worked out to about 12%. The rest would go to my new account. I also immediately ordered a new credit card in just my name with points that would benefit only me. My banker buddy Mike helped me out. Seen this 1,000 times, man, he said. Guys letting their wives drain them dry. Good for you for putting a stop to it. When I returned home that evening, she was waiting with this calculated smile that I now recognized as her manipulation face. Head tilted, one hip cocked, that fake innocent look. I've been thinking about our conversation, she said, sidling up to me wearing the tight dress I once complimented. I was stressed. You know I appreciate everything you do. Her hand slid down my arm as she mentioned wanting to book a weekend getaway to a $900 per night resort in Napa that she clearly expected me to fund entirely. Sounds nice, I replied neutrally. Let's split the cost evenly since we both work. Her smile faltered momentarily before she recovered. You know my job doesn't pay much. I was thinking you could cover it as a gift. Plus, Megan and Brad are going the same weekend and already booked. Ah, so this was about keeping up with her friend. Figured. The entitlement in her voice was unmistakable now that I was listening for it. Every sentence started with I want or I need, but never we anymore. I'm cutting back on expenses, I said simply. I updated our banking arrangement today to be more proportional to our incomes. The calculated warmth vanished instantly. Her eyes widened and her face flushed red. You did what? Without discussing it with me first? She actually stamped her foot like a toddler. The irony of her demanding discussions about financial changes when she'd been making withdrawals without consultation for years wasn't lost on me. I'm just matching your approach, I explained calmly. You keep your personal money separate, and now I'll do the same. I'll contribute proportionately to our joint expenses, just as you do. About 12% by my calculation. 12%? That's ridiculous. How am I supposed to live on that? She shrieked. The same way I'm supposed to live on 88% of the bills, I guess, I replied. The argument that followed was revealing. She accused me of everything from cruelty to betrayal, yet couldn't articulate why it was acceptable for her to have financial independence, but not me. When she realized I wouldn't budge, she switched tactics. Crying those fake tears I'd fallen for so many times, mascara strategically running, claiming I didn't trust her anymore. Trust is earned through actions, I responded. Your actions show you want independence, not partnership. I'm respecting your choice by doing the same. But how will I pay for girls' night? And my facial next week? She actually asked through her tears. Not, how will we pay the mortgage, but how she'd fund her luxuries. Mask officially dropped. Over the next week, I continued implementing my reciprocity plan. I cooked meals only for myself, matching her behavior of the past months. I cleaned only my own messes. When she left dishes in the sink, they stayed there until she handled them. I did my own laundry, but not hers. The breaking point came when she needed a ride after her car wouldn't start. For years, I'd dropped everything to help her with such emergencies. This time, I responded with the same excuse she'd given when I'd asked her to pick me up during a snowstorm. Sorry, I'm in the middle of something important. Can you call an Uber? I texted. Are you serious right now? I'm your wife, she texted back. Yes, and I'm your husband. I'm just giving you what you give me. That evening, she confronted me directly. What's happened to you? You've changed? Nothing's happened to me, I answered honestly. I've just started to value myself enough to expect reciprocity. I'm matching your investment in this marriage. Nothing more, nothing less. She stormed off to stay at her friend's place. I felt no satisfaction, only a grim determination to continue the course I'd set. This wasn't about punishment. It was about establishing boundaries after years of one-sided compromise. By the third week of my new approach, the dynamic between us had shifted dramatically. She returned from her friend's place after 2 days, expecting me to have come to my senses. Instead, she found me perfectly content with the new arrangement. The power imbalance that had defined our relationship was dissolving, and she clearly didn't know how to handle it. Her first strategy was to weaponize sex. After months of rejecting my advances with excuses about headaches or fatigue, she suddenly appeared in the bedroom wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. When I politely declined, citing the same tired excuse she'd used countless times, her expression was priceless. A mixture of shock and indignation, like her hotness alone should command my immediate attention, regardless of her previous rejections. Is there someone else? She demanded, immediately jumping to accusations rather than self-reflection. No, I replied honestly. I'm just matching your level of interest. When you start showing consistent desire for intimacy, rather than using it as a manipulation tool, I'll respond in kind. This led to her second strategy, involving others in our private matters. The next day, my phone blew up with messages from her family members questioning why I was mistreating her. According to her carefully crafted narrative, I had suddenly become controlling and cold for no reason. She had conveniently left out the years of imbalance that led to my change in behavior. Rather than getting into it with her family, I responded to each message with a simple, I appreciate your concern, but this is between my wife and me. Meanwhile, I documented every manipulation attempt in a journal, not out of pettiness, but as a reality check for myself when doubts crept in. Her third strategy emerged during a dinner with our closest friends. It was a calculated public performance. She was excessively affectionate, repeatedly mentioning things she'd supposedly done for me, most of which never happened. When our friends asked about our plans for the upcoming holiday weekend, she jumped in. We're thinking of going to the lake house. He works so hard, and I want to treat him. The lake house belonged to my family. The treat would come entirely from my pocket. Our friends nodded approvingly at her apparent generosity. Actually, I interjected calmly, we haven't discussed any plans yet. If you'd like to plan a trip, we should talk about how we'll split the costs. The momentary flash of anger in her eyes was quickly masked with a laugh. Oh, he's so practical these days, she told our friends, squeezing my arm with fingernails that dug a little too deep. After our friends left, she exploded. How dare you contradict me in front of them? You made me look bad. I simply stated the truth, I replied. If you want to present yourself as generous, make genuinely generous offers that don't rely on my resources. The confrontation escalated until she threw her trump card. My father always said I deserved a man who would provide everything for me without question. Maybe he was right about you not being good enough. For years, that comparison to some imaginary perfect provider would have cut deep. This time, I simply nodded. You're entitled to that view, and I'm entitled to expect partnership rather than servitude. If that's not what you want, perhaps we should reconsider this marriage. The suggestion of ending things, coming from me rather than as her manipulative threat, visibly unsettled her. The financial reality of divorce suddenly seemed to dawn on her. Without access to my income, her lifestyle would change dramatically. Her expression shifted from anger to calculation in an instant. I don't want that, she said, her voice softening. We can work this out. I agreed we could, but only with clear expectations of reciprocity. That night, for the first time in years, she washed the dinner dishes without being asked. It was a small gesture, but it revealed something crucial. She was capable of contributing when properly motivated. The real test came the following weekend, when my car needed repairs. For years, I'd handled all vehicle maintenance for both our cars. This time, I took mine to the shop, but left hers with its overdue oil change unaddressed. When are you going to take my car in? She asked, clearly expecting me to handle it as usual. I'm not, I replied simply. I take care of my car, you take care of yours. That's equality. As she struggled to comprehend this new reality where her problems weren't automatically mine to solve, I realized something important. This wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It was about saving myself from a lifetime of one-sided sacrifice that would eventually leave me empty. A month into my reciprocity plan, the confrontation I had been anticipating finally happened. It began with a credit card statement that arrived in the mail. $3,200 charged to a joint credit card, mostly for designer clothing and expensive salon treatments. For years, I had silently absorbed these costs despite our agreement to discuss any purchase over $200. Those days were over. I placed the statement on the kitchen counter and texted her that we needed to discuss it when she got home. She responded with a casual whatever that showed she still didn't grasp the fundamental shift in our dynamic. When she arrived home and saw me sitting calmly at the kitchen table with the statement before me, her expression flickered between defiance and calculation. She opted for the approach that had always worked in the past: distraction. You wouldn't believe the day I've had, she began, launching into a detailed story about workplace drama. I listened politely, waiting for her to finish before quietly redirecting. About the credit card charges, I said, tapping the statement. I'll be paying my portion of the shared household expenses. The personal items you purchased will need to come from your account. She froze. That's not how we've ever done things. The past arrangement wasn't working for me, I replied calmly. Just as you decided unilaterally that certain marital duties weren't working for you. Her voice rose immediately. So this is punishment for not being your personal chef and maid? This isn't punishment, I corrected. It's consequence. You wanted independence from traditional expectations while maintaining traditional benefits. I'm simply applying that same principle to finances. What followed was the most honest conversation we'd had in years. She accused me of changing the rules mid-game. I pointed out that she had changed them first when she decided marriage was a one-way street of benefits. She claimed I was being petty. I suggested I was being precise, giving exactly what I received. Do you even love me anymore? She demanded. Tears forming. Tears I had seen before when logic failed and emotional manipulation became her weapon of choice. I married you because I loved you, I answered truthfully. But love requires respect to survive, and respect requires reciprocity. The argument escalated until she grabbed her phone and called her father, putting him on speaker with a triumphant look. I recognized the tactic immediately. She was mobilizing her strongest ally, expecting me to back down as I had in previous disagreements. Daddy, he's refusing to pay the credit card bill, she said, her voice suddenly small and victimized. Her father's gruff voice filled the kitchen. What's the problem here? A real man takes care of his wife's needs without complaining. In the past, I would have acquiesced under this pressure. This time I spoke directly and confidently. Sir, with respect, a real partnership involves mutual support and contribution. I'm happy to discuss this with my wife, but this is between us. The silence that followed was deep. Her father, not used to being challenged, sputtered before demanding to speak to his daughter alone. She took the call to another room, but I could hear her increasingly agitated voice as her father apparently failed to provide the intervention she had expected. She returned 20 minutes later, face flushed with anger. He says I should consider whether this marriage is working for me. That's a fair question, I agreed. One we should both consider. Is a relationship based on authentic partnership something you actually want? Uncertainty flickered across her face. The script wasn't playing out as expected. Her usual tactics were failing, and she seemed genuinely unsure how to proceed without them. That night, a surprising shift occurred. Without discussion, she prepared dinner for both of us, something she hadn't done in months. It wasn't a fancy meal, just pasta with jarred sauce. But the gesture itself spoke volumes. She was testing whether reciprocity could actually work in her favor too. As we ate in relative silence, I realized this wasn't just about correcting an imbalanced relationship anymore. It was about discovering whether there was anything left between us worth salvaging once the manipulations and one-sided expectations were stripped away. The tentative peace established after our honest conversation lasted precisely 3 weeks before the final confrontation arrived. In those weeks, we had existed in an uneasy truce. She made sporadic efforts toward genuine partnership, handling some household responsibilities, contributing to decisions, even initiating intimacy without ulterior motives. I matched her efforts exactly, maintaining the principle of reciprocity while watching her closely. Then came the credit card bill from her weekend trip with Megan and Tiffany, a $6,900 charge to our joint account. The charges included luxury spa treatments, $2,200, expensive dinners, $1,500, high-end boutique purchases, $3,000, and even a fucking psychic reading, $200, well beyond our agreed spending limits. What made it worse was finding the statement deliberately hidden beneath a stack of magazines, rather than in our usual mail location. When confronted, she initially denied knowing anything about it. Must be fraud, she claimed. When shown the actual itemized statement with her signature, she switched to justification. I work hard. I deserve nice things. She actually stomped her foot again. I agree that everyone deserves rewards for their work, I replied. But those rewards should align with their contribution and come from their own earnings. Her eyes narrowed. So you're refusing to pay it? I'll cover my half of our shared household expenses as agreed. The personal luxuries are your responsibility. The calculation behind her next move was visible in real time, as her expression shifted from anger to a practiced vulnerability. I can't afford this on my own, she admitted, voice deliberately small. My job doesn't pay enough. Then perhaps luxury spa weekends shouldn't be a priority, I suggested. Or perhaps a better paying job might be something to consider. I hear Starbucks is hiring. They give benefits too. She stared at me as if I'd suggested something outrageous, rather than the basic financial responsibility most adults navigate daily. Then came the ultimatum I had half expected for months. If you don't pay this bill in full, I want a divorce. The words hung in the air between us. In the past, such a threat would have sent me scrambling to placate her, to preserve a marriage I had invested so much in despite its increasing returns of misery. This time, I felt an unexpected calm. I understand, I replied simply. If that's your decision, I'll respect it. My response clearly wasn't what she had anticipated. She backpedaled immediately. I don't actually want that. I just need you to understand how serious this is. I do understand, I assured her. You're saying that unless I fund luxury purchases made without consultation, our marriage isn't viable. From your perspective, that clarifies your priorities perfectly. She tried several more emotional appeals, ranging from accusations of cruelty to reminders of how good we used to be together. When these failed, she switched to threats about taking half of everything in a divorce, clearly expecting this financial leverage to force my compliance. You're absolutely entitled to a fair division of our marital assets, I agreed calmly. I've already consulted an attorney about equitable distribution based on contribution. What I didn't tell her was that I'd been documenting everything for months, had already moved some assets, and had been getting advice from Mike at the bank who'd seen this scenario countless times. The mention of an attorney silenced her momentarily. You've talked to a lawyer behind my back? I've prepared for the possibility that reciprocity might not be acceptable to you long term, I explained, just as you prepared for financial independence by maintaining separate accounts throughout our marriage. In the stunned silence that followed, I added, I would prefer to build something authentic with you, but I won't return to an arrangement where I give everything and receive little in return. She left the house without another word. Late that night, she returned and made one final attempt: seduction as manipulation, the strategy that had resolved countless arguments in the past by bypassing genuine resolution. I declined firmly, explaining that intimacy should be an expression of connection, not a tool for control. The rejection seemed to finally cement the reality of our new dynamic. She packed an overnight bag and announced she would be staying with her sister until you come to your senses. 3 days later, I received divorce papers. But this is where my story takes a different turn than you might expect. My preparation had been more thorough than she could have imagined. When she was served with my counterfiling, it included 1. Screenshots of her admitting to deliberately hiding expenses and texts to Megan 2. Bank statements showing her pattern of financial abuse 3. Documentation of the actual household contribution split 88-12. 4. Screenshots of her mocking me to her friends 5. Evidence she'd been planning to upgrade husbands once I got my expected promotion. The week after she received these papers, the bottom fell out of her life. Her company announced layoffs, and her position was eliminated. Her toxic friend Megan, going through her own divorce, couldn't help her financially. Her credit cards were maxed out from the spa weekend and shopping sprees. That's when the texts started coming. We should talk about this in person. I think I was too hasty. Can I come home? Just to discuss things? I didn't respond for 3 days. When I did, I simply wrote, "You can come by Saturday at 10 a.m. to discuss financial matters." When she arrived, gone was the entitled princess. In her place was a desperate woman who'd suddenly realized actions have consequences. She'd lost weight, her designer clothes replaced with simple jeans and a sweater. "Ryan," she started, tears already forming. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I miss us. I miss what we had." "Which part? The part where I paid for everything while you contributed nothing? The part where you mocked me to your friends? Or the part where you told Megan you were planning to trade up to a richer husband?" Her face went white. "You saw those texts?" "I saw everything, Vanessa. The plans, the manipulation, all of it. I didn't mean any of it," she sobbed. "I was stupid and spoiled and I need you. They laid me off. My cards are maxed out. Megan can't help me." And there it was. Not, "I love you," or "I was wrong," but "I need you." Specifically, she needed my money. "So to be clear," I said calmly, "now that you're in financial trouble, you've decided our marriage is worth saving?" She nodded eagerly. "I can change. I'll do the housework. I'll contribute more. Whatever you want." I took a deep breath. "I want a partner, not a dependent who behaves when she's desperate." The divorce proceeds as planned. What followed was the most spectacular meltdown I've ever witnessed. Screaming, begging, threatening, all in the space of minutes. She actually got on her knees and grabbed my legs, mascara streaming down her face. "Please, Ryan, I'll do anything. I have nowhere to go. My parents won't help me. They said I made my bed." For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You had a husband who would have done anything for you. You chose entitlement over partnership. Those choices have consequences." As she left, she turned at the door. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Get a job, Vanessa, like the rest of us." 6 weeks later, our divorce was finalized with terms that heavily favored me based on the evidence. She got nothing beyond the legal minimum, which wasn't much given our short marriage and the documentation of her contribution, or lack thereof. Through mutual friends, I heard she moved to a studio apartment and took a job as an executive assistant, a major step down from her marketing role. Her Instagram, once full of luxury posts, went quiet. A year after the divorce, I got a letter from her. It was actually thoughtful and reflective, acknowledging her entitlement and mistakes. Too little, too late, but it suggested she might eventually grow as a person. Meanwhile, my life improved dramatically. The promotion came through, raising my salary to $180,000. I paid off our house, now just mine, started traveling more, and reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage. Derek introduced me to his wife's friend Sarah, a pediatric nurse who paid her own way, cooked amazing meals because she enjoyed it, and actually listened when I talked. The difference was night and day. Last month, something unexpected happened. I was at a high-end steakhouse with my new girlfriend celebrating my promotion to Chief Information Security Officer. $250,000 now, plus stock options. We were enjoying our $200 bottle of wine when Vanessa walked up to our table. She wasn't a customer. She was our server. "Ryan," she said, her voice small. The expensive highlights were gone. The designer clothes replaced with a server's uniform. How are you?" "I'm great," I said honestly. I introduced Sarah, who gave a polite smile. That's good," Vanessa said, her eyes darting between us, lingering on Sarah's hand on mine. Can I get you anything else? Just the check when you get a chance, I replied. No spite, no gloating. I genuinely felt nothing but mild pity. As she walked away, Sarah asked, Ex-wife? Yep. You never told me she was working as a server? I didn't know, I said truthfully. But I'm not surprised. Actions have consequences. When Vanessa brought the check, she slipped a note underneath. I waited until we left to read it. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't understand what I had until it was gone. You were right about everything. I had to learn the hard way that the world doesn't owe me anything. If you ever want to catch up, I'd like to apologize properly. I crumpled it up and tossed it in a trash can outside the restaurant. Sarah gave me a questioning look. The past should stay in the past, I said. I've got everything I need right here. 2 weeks after that encounter, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It's Vanessa. Please, can we talk? I've lost everything. My apartment is being foreclosed. I have nowhere to go. My parents won't help. I made terrible mistakes. I know I don't deserve your help, but I don't know who else to turn to. I showed it to Derek over beers that night. Don't fall for it, bro, he warned. Classic manipulation. I have no intention of rescuing her, I assured him. But I am curious what she wants. I agreed to meet her for coffee in public. When she showed up, I barely recognized her. The woman who once spent $800 on skincare each month looked tired, worn down. Life had clearly been rough since our divorce. Thank you for coming, she said, wringing her hands. I don't know where to start. How about the truth for once? I suggested. She broke down right there in the coffee shop. Through her tears, she confessed everything. How she'd taken me for granted, how she'd used me, how she'd planned to upgrade once I got successful enough. She admitted to cheating once with her boss, which I hadn't known about, and how karma got her when he fired her during the layoffs despite their affair. I've hit rock bottom, she said finally. I owe $40,000 in credit card debt. I've been evicted from my apartment. My car was repossessed last week. Megan won't talk to me anymore since her divorce. I have nothing. Then came the real purpose of the meeting. I was hoping maybe I could stay at the house for a little while, just until I get back on my feet. I wouldn't be in your way. I could help around the house like before. I mean, better than before. I almost laughed at the irony. Now that she'd experienced the consequences of her actions, suddenly she was willing to contribute. Classic. Vanessa, I said gently but firmly, what you're experiencing now are the natural consequences of your choices. The entitlement, the manipulation, the taking without giving. It all led here. I can't rescue you from that. But I'll do anything, she pleaded, reaching for my hand across the table. I've changed. I've learned my lesson. If you've truly changed, then you'll find your way without using someone else as a crutch. That's what mature adults do. As I stood to leave, I placed $500 in cash on the table. This is a one-time gesture. Not because you deserve it, but because I choose to be kind despite how you treated me. Use it to get a bus ticket to your parents or find a room to rent. After this, don't contact me again. The mixture of gratitude and humiliation on her face was something I'll never forget. I walked away feeling not satisfaction, but closure. I had given her exactly what she had given me during our marriage, the bare minimum, and now I was free to give someone deserving so much more. 3 years have passed since the divorce, and 5 months since that coffee shop meeting. I heard through mutual friends that Vanessa eventually moved back to her hometown, got a job as a receptionist, and is living with a roommate in a small apartment. Her social media is gone. No more flaunting a lifestyle she didn't earn. Meanwhile, Sarah moved in last month. We share expenses equally despite my much higher income, because that's what she insists on. She cooks because she enjoys it, not because she has to. I handle the yard work because I find it relaxing. When one of us has a rough day, the other picks up the slack without keeping score. It's what a partnership should be. Sometimes my mind drifts back to that spreadsheet, my cold justice plan, that saved me from a lifetime of being used. It wasn't about revenge in the end, though the justice was certainly satisfying. It was about valuing myself enough to demand reciprocity, about recognizing that healthy relationships can't survive when one person consistently takes while the other gives. The most important lesson I learned? People who truly value you won't see basic respect and contribution as optional. They'll give freely because they want to, not because they're forced to. And they certainly won't wait until they're desperate to start treating you right. So to any guys reading this who recognize yourselves in my story, you're not crazy, you're not selfish for wanting balance, and you're not obligated to fund someone else's entitled lifestyle. Stand up for yourself before it's too late. The right person won't make you fight for basic respect. Story 6. You're not welcome this Thanksgiving, my mom whispered. Fine, but don't expect my $10,200, I said, while shutting down all utilities my sister claimed she was paying. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup Reddit. Long-time lurker, first-time poster? Never thought I'd be dropping my own nuclear family drama here, but sometimes you gotta let that shit out, you know? Some background before I, 29 male, dive into this dumpster fire. I'm the younger of two kids. I work as a systems analyst for a medical software company. Making decent money, nothing crazy, but I got my shit together. My sister, I'll call her Jess, is 32, the artistic one who's been my parents' golden child since like the beginning of time. Our dad worked management at a manufacturing plant for 30 years until he got laid off 2 years ago. Mom's always done admin work, mostly part-time so she could be there for Jessica when we were growing up. I was always the easy kid. Good grades, no trouble, kept to myself. Got that full ride to engineering school, graduated, landed a solid job. Jess was the drama queen, good and bad. When she succeeded at something, rare F, it was like she'd cured cancer. When she failed, her natural state, it was never her fault. Some teacher had it out for her, or Mercury was in retrograde, or whatever excuse worked that day. When she needed money, constantly, the family rallied like she was a GoFundMe cause. When I needed anything, well, I was so capable I could handle it myself. I used to think that being the reliable one would earn me some peace, that if I stayed out of trouble, did everything right, kept my head down, they'd eventually see me, respect me, but they just got used to me not needing anything. Like being low maintenance somehow made me less of a son. That's how it's always been. Jess, the special snowflake who needs protection, and me, the afterthought who's expected to just deal. 2 years ago, Dad lost his job when his company downsized. After 30 years, they tossed him aside like yesterday's trash. That hit him hard, harder than anyone expected. He fell into this depression, couldn't find equivalent work. Mom's part-time gig wasn't enough to cover their bills. One night, Mom called me crying. "We might lose the house, Tyler. The mortgage is 2 months behind. We don't know what to do." So I stepped up, paid the back mortgage, set up automatic payments for their utilities, started sending grocery money. It was supposed to be temporary. Just until Dad gets back on his feet, Mom said. Something shifted in me during that time. I wasn't just helping them. I was trying to earn something I didn't even realize I was missing. Maybe approval, maybe connection, maybe just a damn thank you that felt like it meant something. I started tying my worth to how much I could give, and when they stopped acknowledging it, it messed with me more than I'd ever admit out loud. But Dad didn't get back on his feet. He took a job at half his former salary. Their expenses stayed the same, and somehow I became their unofficial support system. At first, they were grateful, like genuinely grateful. But then something changed. The thank yous stopped. My contributions became expected, not appreciated. And gradually, I noticed they started talking more about how Jessica was helping so much. I brushed it off initially. Maybe she was pitching in too. But then came Thanksgiving last year. Uncle Rick raised a toast to Jessica for keeping this family going through hard times. Everyone cheered. I looked around, confused AF. Jessica just smiled modestly and said, "You guys, it's nothing. Family takes care of family." Later, I overheard my cousin Megan telling her husband, "Jess pays all their bills now. Tyler never offers to help, even though he makes way more." I stood there, grocery bags in hand, that I'd paid for, stunned. What the actual hell was going on? But then I cornered Jessica that night, while she was getting wine from the garage fridge. "Are you telling people you're paying Mom and Dad's bills?" I asked. She didn't even flinch. Just gave me this look. Half challenge, half warning. "They need to believe someone cares, Tyler." "I'm the one actually paying, Jessica." She smiled. That smug little smile that made me want to yeet her into the sun. "But I'm the one actually here. You show up what, once a month? Drop off some cash and think that makes you a good son? They need more than your money. So you're taking credit for my money and making me look bad?" She sighed like I was being dense. "They're happier thinking I'm helping. Mom's always worried you're struggling, that they're a burden to you. This way, everyone feels better. Everyone except me." She patted my cheek condescendingly. "You've always been so hung up on recognition, Tyler. Some of us just help because it's right, not for the gold star." In that moment, I didn't feel angry. I felt hollow, like I was a stranger at my own table. I wanted to stand up and scream that I'd been keeping the lights on, that everything they praised Jessica for came from me. But some part of me still held back. Like if I said it, it'd prove I was the selfish one they believed me to be. So I said nothing, kept paying, and the resentment grew. I might have continued indefinitely in this twisted arrangement if not for what happened 3 months before Thanksgiving. I came by my parents' house unannounced on a Wednesday to drop off a new router. Their internet had been spotty, and my dad kept blaming the Google for everything. Mom wasn't home yet, but Dad and Jessica were in the kitchen. I was about to call out when I heard my name. Tyler's always been so cold, Jessica was saying. Even as a kid. Remember how he never wanted hugs? He's just different, Dad replied, but his tone suggested different wasn't a compliment. I just don't understand how he can know you guys are struggling and not offer to help, Jessica continued. That fancy condo, his trips to Chicago for those tech conferences. Meanwhile, I'm stretching every dollar to keep the lights on here. I froze, my blood turning to ice. You know we appreciate everything you do, Jesse, Dad said warmly. Those bill payments, the groceries, we'd be lost without you. Well, someone has to be the responsible one, Jessica sighed dramatically. I canceled my spa weekend to cover the property taxes. But don't tell Mom, she'd just feel guilty. I nearly laughed out loud. I had paid those property taxes. $1,000 transferred directly to the county treasurer's office last month. Your mother and I raised one child with a heart at least, Dad said, and the casual cruelty of it stole my breath. Tyler's always been focused on himself. Hey, it's not your fault, Jessica said soothingly. Some people are just born with empathy. Others aren't. I backed away silently, went out the front door, closed it loudly, then called out, "Hello?" As if I'd just arrived. Jessica appeared from the kitchen, face transformed from scheming to sunny. Tyler, what a surprise! I mumbled something about the router, stayed for exactly 15 minutes, then left. In my car, I sat shaking, not from sadness, but from a cold, clear rage I'd never felt before. That night, I did something I should have done months earlier. I created a spreadsheet of every dollar I'd given my parents over the past 2 years. Mortgage help, 4,200 utilities, 2,400 groceries, 1,300 car insurance, 800 property taxes, 1,000 emergency cash, 500 plus total, 10,200 freaking dollars. Not a single acknowledgement, not one genuine thank you. Just Jessica taking credit and painting me as the heartless son who didn't care. I started paying more attention after that. I noticed how Jessica would make a show of checking her bank account and sighing dramatically whenever bills were mentioned around family. How she'd post cryptic, martyr-like captions on Instagram. Family first, always. No matter the sacrifice. I even found a group text I wasn't included in where she wrote, "Water heater replacement handled. Don't worry about it." With my goddamn money! The more I looked, the more I saw. This wasn't just Jessica taking casual credit for my help. This was a systematic campaign to establish herself as the family savior, while casting me as the selfish villain. She wasn't just stealing my credit. She was stealing my place in the family, and I let her. For 2 years, I let her. Until Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving Day. Everyone's supposed to be happy, right? Family gatherings, turkey dinner, all that wholesome shit. I drove 4 hours to my parents' place, fighting traffic the whole way, had some homemade pumpkin pie I actually put effort into, because I'm an idiot who still tries. Even wore that navy button-up my mom always says makes me look professional. Her way of saying I clean up okay. I knock on the door, waiting for the usual lukewarm welcome, but when my mom answers, she only cracks it open like I'm some door-to-door salesman trying to scam her. Tyler, you can't come in today, she whispers. Not happy Thanksgiving or, hey, good to see you. Just straight-up rejection. I blink, thinking maybe I misheard. What? You're kidding, right? Mom glances behind her nervously, then steps out onto the porch and pulls the door almost shut. It's better if you didn't join us today. Things are a bit tense. I drove 4 hours to be here, I say, my voice still level, but my head starting to pound. I know, she says, still keeping her voice down. But Jessica said she wouldn't come if you were here. She's been under so much pressure lately with everything she's doing for the family. Jessica, my sister, the golden child. Of course it's her. From inside, I can hear glasses clinking and laughter. My Uncle Rick's booming voice. What would we do without Jessica keeping this family afloat? Then my sister's voice, deliberately loud enough to carry, I just believe families should support each other. Some people understand that better than others. I stand there, hands full of gifts they don't deserve, feeling something shift inside me. Not rage, not yet. Just the first small crack in a dam that's been holding back a flood for years. I nod slowly. I see. It wasn't just betrayal. It was clarity. The kind that burns through denial. I'd spent my whole adult life trying to be what they needed, waiting for the day they'd look at me and finally see me. Instead, they slammed the door in my face to keep their favorite illusion intact. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being erased. Maybe next weekend would be better, Mom suggests, not meeting my eyes. Jessica's been so stressed about the mortgage payment she covered last month. Something clicks. The mortgage? She told you she paid the mortgage? Well, yes, and the utilities. She's been such a blessing since your father's layoff. I pull out my phone and, without a word, open my banking app. Mom, who do you think has been paying your bills for the past 2 years? She looks confused. Jessica's been handling everything. She shows us the receipts every month. Those are my receipts that I send her when she asks for confirmation, I say, my voice deadly calm. I've been paying your mortgage, utilities, internet, everything. Over $7,500 in the last year alone. Mom's face goes blank with confusion. But Jessica said, I hit a button on my phone app. Well, I just turned off all the utilities. They're in my name. Let's see how Jessica handles that. Mom's eyes widen. What? You can't. From inside, I hear my sister's voice rise in panic. The Wi-Fi just went out. And why did the lights flicker? I turn and walk back to my car, ignoring my mom calling after me. As I'm backing out of the driveway, I see Jessica burst through the front door, face twisted with rage and panic, phone held up like a weapon. Tyler, what did you do? She screams. I roll down my window. I gave you what you wanted. Thanks, give without me. Enjoy explaining to everyone how you've been supporting the family now that the power's out. As I drive away, I catch her expression in my rearview mirror. Pure terror. Because she knows that the house of cards she's built is about to come crashing down. The first domino has fallen. After I drove away from Thanksgiving dinner, my phone exploded with notifications. Mom called 6 times. Dad, 4. Jessica blew up my phone with increasingly panicked texts. Turn it back on. WTF is wrong with you? Mom is crying. The food is going to spoil. You're ruining everything. I silenced my phone and drove to a state park nearby. Found a quiet spot overlooking a lake. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Like I'd finally put down a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. When I finally checked my phone again, I had 32 missed calls and 57 texts. One voicemail from Dad stood out. Tyler, this childish stunt needs to end now. Turn the utilities back on and we can discuss your issues later. My issues. Right. I texted back 2 words. Ask Jessica. Then I turned my phone off completely and drove home. I knew what was coming, and I needed to prepare. Sure enough, around 8 p.m., there was frantic knocking at my apartment door. The whole family had arrived. Mom looking devastated, Dad grim and angry, and Jessica alternating between fake tears and genuine panic. I opened the door and leaned against the frame. Can I help you? Jessica tried to push past me. Fix it, right now. I blocked her with my arm. Fix what exactly? I thought you were paying all the bills. That's what you've been telling everyone, right? Her face went from flushed to pale in an instant. Mom and Dad exchanged confused looks. What is he talking about, Jessica? Mom asked, her voice small. Jessica recovered quickly. He's making things up to cause drama. He's jealous that I've been helping while he's been absent. I laughed. Not a happy laugh. The kind that makes people uncomfortable. One chance, I said to Jessica. Tell them the truth, or I will. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, but her voice wavered. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward my parents. See these payments? Every month for 2 years. Mortgage company, electric company, water company, internet provider, property taxes, all from my account. They leaned in, faces confused. This doesn't make sense, Dad said slowly. Jessica said she was covering those. Jessica was standing back, arms crossed defensively. I have my own system. Just because you make some payments doesn't mean I haven't. Every single bill, I cut her off. Every dollar. While you told them all I didn't care enough to help, while you posted on social media about your sacrifices for the family, Mom turned to Jessica, her expression changing from confusion to dawning realization. Jessica, have you been lying to us? Jessica's eyes darted around like she was looking for an escape route. It's complicated. I've been helping in other ways. Like what? I asked. Your inspirational Instagram posts? Your emotional support? Don't you talk to your sister that way, Dad started, but his voice lacked conviction. Unbelievable, I said, shaking my head. You find out she's been lying about thousands of dollars, and you're still defending her. We don't know that she's... Dad began. Call the utility companies, I challenged. Ask them whose name the accounts are in. Ask them who's been making the payments. Jessica's face crumpled, and right on cue, the tears started flowing. It was her trump card, the one that had worked since we were kids. I was trying to help, she sobbed. Tyler doesn't need the recognition. He doesn't care about family the way I do. I was protecting him. Protecting me? I repeated. By taking credit for my money and making everyone think I don't support the family? You don't understand, she cried. They needed to believe someone close was helping them. You're never there. And there it was. The real reason. I wasn't physically present enough, so Jessica had decided I didn't deserve to be acknowledged at all. My mother sat down heavily on my couch. I don't understand. Jessica, you specifically said you were paying the utilities. You showed me receipts. Screenshots, I corrected. Screenshots of my payments that she asked me to send as confirmation. Dad was looking back and forth between us, his worldview visibly crumbling. But all those times you said you couldn't go on trips with your friends because you were paying our bills. Jessica just cried harder. She's been playing you, I said quietly, using my money to make herself look like the hero, while making sure everyone sees me as the villain. That's not true, Jessica shouted through her tears. I've been helping in ways Tyler doesn't understand. Emotional support is just as important as money. I laughed again. Emotional support doesn't keep the lights on, Jess. We need to calm down, Dad said, defaulting to his usual role of protecting Jessica from consequences. There's clearly been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I interrupted. Just a lie. A 2-year lie that turned our entire family against me while Jessica basked in praise for my sacrifices. The room went silent except for Jessica's sniffling. So here's what happens now, I continued, feeling strangely calm. I'm done paying your bills. All of them. The utilities stay off until you set up accounts in your names. Jessica can either tell the entire family what she did, or you can keep believing her lies. But either way, my wallet is closed. You can't just cut us off, Mom gasped. I'm not a bank, I replied. I'm your son. The one you never see, remember? The cold, distant one who doesn't care about family? According to Jessica. Jessica suddenly shifted tactics, her face hardening. You're only doing this because you've always been jealous of me. Always. Mom and Dad loved me more, and you can't handle it. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're right. They always loved you more. But I'm not here to beg for scraps. I'm here to shut off the supply you've been living off. You built your whole image on my back. Let's see how long it holds when I stop carrying it. I opened my apartment door. We're done here. Go explain to your Thanksgiving guests why the toilets won't flush. As they filed out, Jessica paused in the doorway. You'll regret this, she hissed, low enough that our parents couldn't hear. No one's going to believe you over me. I smiled. As a great man once said, I don't need you to believe me. I just need them to. I closed the door on her shocked face, and for the first time in years, felt like I could breathe. The aftermath was exactly the chaos I expected. Jessica went nuclear, launching a full-scale PR campaign within the family. Without specifically addressing the accusations, because that would expose her, she painted herself as the victim of my jealous breakdown. Her Instagram stories were a masterclass in vague posting, having to stay strong when people try to tear you down. She sent a group text to the extended family. If Tyler reaches out to any of you with bizarre accusations, please know he's going through something right now. We're all very concerned. My cousin Megan texted me, whatever you did to Jessica, you should apologize. She's devastated. I replied with a screenshot of my mortgage payment to my parents' account with the message, ask Jessica who's really been paying the bills for 2 years. The extended family was confused. Most backed Jessica initially. She'd spent years cultivating her image as the devoted daughter. But cracks were starting to show. My Aunt Linda called me directly. Tyler, I'm confused about something. Jessica's been telling everyone for months that she's been financially supporting your parents, but your mom just asked me for $800 to get the utilities turned back on. I told her everything. Not with anger, just facts. Dates, dollar amounts, screenshots. There was a long pause on the line. Then, at the last year Christmas, Jessica made a big show of giving your parents an envelope she said was their mortgage payment. Made us all clap for her. Check the date on that, I said. I bet it was 3 days after I made the actual payment. Jesus, Linda muttered. Does your mother know? She does now. Linda must have told others, because slowly, family members started reaching out. Not all believed me immediately, but they were asking questions. Jessica's perfectly crafted narrative was beginning to fray at the edges. Meanwhile, my parents were facing reality. They had to set up utility accounts in their own names. They had to pay deposits because their credit wasn't great. They had to actually look at how much these bills cost without the buffer of my silent contributions. Dad found a better job within 2 weeks. Amazing how motivated you can get when there's no safety net. Mom started doing bookkeeping work for a local business. They were adjusting. The truth was spreading through the family like wildfire. Uncle Rick, who had toasted Jessica at Thanksgiving, left me a gruff voicemail. Your father told me what happened. It wasn't right, what she did. None of it. My Aunt Patricia, who had always been Team Jessica, sent me a text. I owe you an apology. I believed what Jessica told us. We all did. And Jessica? Jessica was imploding. She couldn't afford to actually pay what she'd claimed to be paying all along. Her image as the family savior was crumbling, and she didn't handle it well. She showed up at my apartment one night, clearly drunk, pounding on the door at 1 a.m. You ruined everything, she slurred when I opened up. They all hate me now. Are you happy? No one hates you, Jess, I said, feeling tired. They're just finally seeing you clearly. She tried to push past me into the apartment, but I blocked her. You need to go home. Part of me still wanted to believe she was redeemable, that there was some version of her that understood what she'd done. But another part, the one that's been ignored and minimized since I was a kid, knew better. Some people aren't sorry they hurt you. They're just sorry you finally stood up. Home? She laughed bitterly. Mom and Dad are barely speaking to me. I'm staying with Melissa. They believe you over me. After everything I've done for them. What have you actually done for them, Jessica? I asked. Besides take credit for my money? Her face contorted with rage. I was there. I listened to Dad cry about losing his job. I helped Mom apply for benefits. I was physically present while you were just throwing money at the problem from a distance. You know what? I said. You're right. You were there, and that matters. But it doesn't give you the right to lie about everything else. When did you become so cold? She asked, her voice breaking. I'm not cold, I replied. I'm just done being used. I called her an Uber and sent her home. After she left, I sat on my couch for a long time, feeling a strange mix of vindication and sadness. The family I knew was gone, but maybe that wasn't entirely a bad thing. About a month after Thanksgiving, Dad called me. His voice was different, humbled. We had no idea you were paying so much, he said quietly. Jessica told us she was handling everything. She had explanations for everything. I'm sure she did, I replied. We should have asked more questions, he admitted. We should have seen things more clearly. It wasn't quite an apology, but from my father, it was seismic. Is Jessica still staying with you guys? I asked. Dad sighed. Number. She moved in with her friend after everything came out. She says we betrayed her by believing you. Of course she did. Are you and Mom managing okay? I found myself asking, hating that I still cared. We're getting by, Dad said. My new job helps. Your mom's working more hours. It's tight, but we're okay. I felt a twinge of guilt, then reminded myself this was how it should have been all along. They were adults. This was their responsibility. Good, I said. That's good. Before hanging up, Dad said something that stopped me cold. You know, your mother found some letters in Jessica's old room. Bank statements of yours. Credit card bills. Looks like she's been accessing your information for quite some time. I went completely still. What kind of information? Account numbers. Passwords, maybe. I don't know all the details. Your mother's pretty upset about it. After hanging up, I immediately called my bank and credit card companies. Sure enough, there had been multiple attempts to access my accounts over the past year. Attempts I'd attributed to random phishing attacks. They all came from IP addresses I now recognized as Jessica's apartment building. She hadn't just been stealing my credit. She'd been trying to steal my actual money. So I filed fraud reports, changed all my passwords, froze my credit, and started the process of pressing charges. Not because I wanted revenge, but because some lines can't be crossed without consequences. As a great man once said, it's not about money, it's about sending a message. What started as a simple fraud investigation quickly turned into something bigger. The detective assigned to my case asked to meet me at a coffee shop near my apartment. She slid a folder across the table. I think you need to see this, she said. Inside were bank statements, credit applications, and loan documents, all with my information, but none that I'd ever authorized. Jessica had been busy. How bad is it? I asked. She attempted to open 3 credit cards in your name, was declined for 2, but managed to get one with a $5,000 limit, maxed it out within a week. I felt sick. I had no idea. That's not all, she continued. We found similar patterns with your grandmother's social security information, your cousin Megan's wedding fund, and what appears to be some kind of charity money from her yoga studio. Jesus Christ, I muttered. Your sister has been very resourceful, she said, her tone neutral, but her eyes conveying what she really thought. The district attorney wants to talk to you about pressing charges. I nodded slowly. I'll do whatever's needed. As I was leaving, the detective said something that stuck with me. In my experience, Mr. Reynolds, people like your sister don't change. They just find new victims. The next few weeks were a blur of statements, interviews, and legal meetings. My parents were devastated when they learned the full extent of Jessica's actions. Mom called me sobbing one night. How could she do this? How did we not see it? I didn't have an answer that wouldn't hurt her more. The truth was, they had created this monster by never holding Jessica accountable for anything. The family fracture deepened. Some relatives, the ones who had benefited from Jessica's charismatic presence, still defended her. She must have been desperate. She didn't mean to hurt anyone. Tyler's blowing this out of proportion. Others, those who'd been burned by her lies, or had seen through her act years ago, rallied around me. My cousin Ben, who I'd barely spoken to in years, reached out. I always knew something was off with her, The way she'd take credit for everything good and blame others for anything bad. The divide was painful, but clarifying. It showed me who actually cared about truth versus who just wanted to maintain the comfortable family fiction we'd all been living in. 3 months after Thanksgiving, Jessica was formally charged with multiple counts of identity theft, credit card fraud, and embezzlement. She rejected a plea deal, convinced she could charm her way out of consequences as she always had. And it didn't work. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records don't lie, even when sisters do. 6 months after that Thanksgiving, I'm sitting in a courtroom watching Jessica plead guilty to identity theft and fraud. Turns out my situation wasn't unique. Once investigators started digging, they found she'd been borrowing money from several sources: our grandmother's social security checks, our cousin's wedding fund, even skimming from the charity drive she organized at her yoga studio. The look on her face when the judge denies her attorney's request for probation instead of jail time is something I'll carry with me forever. Not because I enjoy seeing her suffer, but because it's the first time in her life that her tears, her excuses, her "but I'm special" defense doesn't work. Reality, as they say, is a bitch. My parents are in the back of the courtroom. Mom's crying silently. Dad looks 10 years older. They didn't want to come, but I insisted. Not to punish them, but because they needed to see the truth with their own eyes. After the sentencing, 18 months likely to serve 8, I meet them outside. We stand awkwardly in the courthouse hallway. These people who raised me, who I both love and resent in equal measure. We didn't know, Mom says finally, her voice barely audible, about any of it. I know, I say, and I do. They didn't know because they didn't want to know, because Jessica had spent a lifetime training them to see only what she wanted them to see. Will you ever forgive us? Dad asks, and the vulnerability in his voice nearly breaks me. I'm working on it, I answer honestly, but it's going to take time. They nod, understanding finally that some wounds don't heal with a simple apology, that trust once broken isn't easily restored. We go to dinner, the three of us, and talk more honestly than we have in years. About Jessica, yes, but also about our family dynamics, about the golden child pedestal they put her on, about how they never saw me clearly. We took you for granted, Mom admits, because you never seemed to need us the way she did. Everyone needs to be seen, Mom, I reply. Even the quiet ones, especially the quiet ones. They drive back to their house, their mortgage now refinanced in their names alone, their bills set up on automatic payments from their own accounts. I drive back to my apartment, which I've finally made truly mine. New furniture, new art on the walls, a space that reflects who I am rather than just a place to crash between family crises. I've saved over $10,200 not paying their bills. Some of it I've used to improve my life. A better car, actual furniture that matches, guitar lessons I've always wanted. Some of it is in a savings account for the future, my future. But the biggest change isn't financial, it's mental. The constant background anxiety is gone. That feeling of dread when my phone would ring, wondering what crisis or bill needed handling this time. The family's still messy. Some relatives still look at me sideways, not fully believing Jessica could have done what she did. She was always so sweet, so thoughtful. The mask she wore was convincing because she'd had a lifetime to perfect it. My relationship with my parents? There isn't one anymore. I blocked their numbers after the court case. No calls, no texts, no awkward holiday dinners. Just complete radio silence. Some people act shocked when I tell them I cut off my entire family. But they're your parents. Yeah, and for 29 years they treated me like an ATM with legs while worshiping the ground my sister walked on. Some things can't be fixed with a half-assed apology and a few care packages. The extended family took sides pretty quick. Most of them backed Jessica and my parents. Blood is thicker than water and all that bullshit. A few reached out, claiming they always knew something was off. But I'm not interested in their retroactive support. Where were they when Jessica was taking credit for my money? Nowhere to be found. As for Jessica, she's serving her time. She still has supporters who believe she was misunderstood or just trying to help in her own way. Some people will never see the truth, even when it's staring them in the face. But I'm not responsible for their delusions anymore. Last week, I received a letter from her. I recognized her handwriting on the envelope, postmarked from the correctional facility. I didn't even bother opening it, just straight into the shredder. Whatever manipulation tactics she was trying to pull, I'm not playing that game anymore. My sister spent years creating a false narrative, where she was the hero and I was irrelevant background noise. She built her pedestal on my invisible support, took credit for my sacrifices, and turned my family against me. But in the end, as another great man once said, the truth has a way of coming out of the shadows. I'm no longer living in anyone's shadow. Not Jessica's, not my parents', not even my own limited view of what I deserved. And as I'm typing this, I'm thinking, It's actually been almost a year since that Thanksgiving, when I finally had enough. Jessica's serving her time, and I've completely rebuilt my life. Sometimes I get random texts from burner numbers, my mom trying to reach out, or distant relatives playing mediator. I just block and delete. You had 29 years to treat me like a human being. That window's closed now. Some people think I'm cold for cutting off my entire family. That's fine. They weren't there. They didn't live it. And honestly, I'm done explaining myself to anyone.